No, Eastern Oregon, you have to have the car heaters you plugged in the house. So almost all the
Where's
houses over there
Creekside
have
Loop?
plugs in the front of the house.
Is that Trimble's?
And long extension cords.
Not familiar. Must be one of the new developments.
You know where Creekside Loop is?
Yeah, it's right down here on the top. It's where the apartment complex is.
Oh, it was Fruit Loop before. Yes. Yes.
It was
Fruit
what?
Loop. It used to be Fruit Loop.
Well, rise please for the pledge
Okay.
and recite with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have roll call, please?
Councilor Pietzel?
Here.
Councilor Horsfall?
Here.
Councilor Hamlin?
Present.
Councilor Lee?
Here.
Councilor Exner?
Here.
Councilor Kubik?
Absent.
And Mayor King?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, Mayor, there are not.
Okay, at this point, I will call for a public comment on items not on the agenda. Name and address, please.
Sure. Carl Exner, 40215 McCormick Court, Sandy, Oregon. I wanted to do this because it's something that's really hit me here the last couple of years, but mostly the last about 6 months or so. And it's pretty close to home to me, so I'm going to work this out. So I wanted to do this in front of the council. Right now, council, there's a crisis going on in our city. It's labeled dementia or Alzheimer's. And there's individuals within the city that are taking care of people who are involved in that. Every 65 seconds, a new brain develops dementia. And in the U.S., 2/3 of those brains belong to women. An estimated 5.7 million people are currently living with Alzheimer's. This relates to about 200 people in the city of Sandy. And those personal facts come from the National League of Cities. I received an article from them just recently, and it kind of reminded me of what I'm doing here. So many of these caregivers who are caring for these dementia and Alzheimer's people are juggling demands of parenting, careers, jobs, kids, and all the rest that goes on with that. If there are 200 people in the city of Sandy that are in dementia, that means there are 400 people who are taking care of them. 400 people are dealing with balancing between businesses and their care people. 400 people are dealing with households and friends and neighbors. So it's impacted a lot of people in our city. I have a personal concern in this area. Just recently, a gentleman came to me that I'm getting to know very well, whose wife just passed away after 8 years of dealing with dementia. I have another friend that I'm working with now that is in the probably middle of dementia, and he's become shut in, he can't drive, he has to deal with forgetting what his children's names are. When I knock on the door sometimes, he forgets who I am and what we do. Pretty personal for me, and I think a lot of it has to do with how people deal with it in this community. It's a real crisis, and everything, and that's this question before each of us is what we want, asking, what is our job in this area? What should we do in the city of Sandy that has this kind of impact? I'm not asking for a committee, I'm not asking for money, I'm not asking for you to do something special, other than to think about in our decisions, in our relationships with those around us, we think about what we do in terms of how it affects those people who are suffering dementia. And it can be in a variety of things, and just thinking about it and keeping it in mind, I think, is important. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
I know a number of people afflicted with this, and I know some people trying to help those afflicted with this crazy disease, and it's difficult on everyone involved, so
Yep.
feel for them. Any other public comment? Okay, then we will call the Urban Renewal Board to order at 7:04 to discuss some urban renewal business. Come on up. We got a chair? Yeah, take Gene's chair.
Right here. Yep. Sure.
feeling our new urban renewal board member might like this one. So this is in regard to Centennial Plaza and the heat issue that we've been having over there in past summers. I don't know how many of you have attended Music Fair and Feast in July, the fundraiser. I know a couple of you have. For those of you who haven't, one of the things, this event's held in the first week of July every year, and one of the things we've been noticing a lot in the last 3 or 4 years is that it's getting unbearably hot in the plaza during parts of that, particularly from like 2 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It gets very, very hot over there. This is something that I'm sure Chris can probably speak to a little bit better than I, as she's the one that's heard the complaints about it. But it's we've been able to respond as a former board member, I guess still current board member of the chamber until the end of December. I've heard them too, and what we've told people is that unfortunately there's not a lot we can do about that, and to a certain extent that's correct. However, we've also noticed that the number of events that we're having in Centennial Plaza has been shrinking as well. We used to have Fiesta in La Plaza there. I never participated in any of those, but that event stopped happening, and the Mountain Head Farmers Market moved from the plaza where the city was operating it down to the Leathers lot now, where as Ant Farm's been operating it for a while. So we're actually losing a number of events in that space. And that kind of got us to thinking about what can we do to mitigate that. One of the things that development services staff have seen around lately is the shade sail concepts, which there's 3 options that we've looked at that are in the attachment to the staff report. But basically, we talked to a couple of companies that construct these sorts of things to get an idea of what cost would be like and what kind of maintenance it would provide every year. What we found is that the costs of the 3 designs that we had put together, the 2 that we liked the most, the cost would be between about $36,000 and $47,000 initial construction. And then we would basically put these up every May and take them down every September. They're not designed for winter weather or wind or anything like that. And that cost would be about $1,000 annually to the city to do that. So it'd be pretty low maintenance costs, really. This would afford us the opportunity to provide a lot more shade there during the hottest part of the summer. And what we're hoping is not only would it make Music Fair and Feast a little bit more tolerable during those periods, but the real hope here is that we will start to encourage the plaza to be used a little bit more by other folks. But we wanted to come to you guys first before we engaged in anything like this and get some direction as to, do you think this is a good idea? And if so, is there an option there you prefer?
Mayor, I did receive Fire Chief Phil Schneider's proxy via text message. He was unable to attend, and he is in favor of some sort of a shade issue there.
In looking at the 3 options, it appears that option 3 maybe covers the most seating. Would you say that was correct?
I would say that's correct, yeah. Yeah, we would be able to provide a lot more shade. And again, when you look, I'm looking at the monitors here right now. Like for Music Fair and Feast, for example, the stage is actually to the left of that picture on the other side of the street. But that would provide quite a bit more shade than the other design.
So I had 2 questions. The first one is, you mentioned businesses leaving or programming leaving that plaza. Mm-hmm. Have we asked them why they left?
Well, I have talked to NUMPA about the farmers market, and it was a concern. It wasn't the primary concern, but it was one concern of theirs. I haven't talked to the people who organized Fiesta a lot.
Okay. So I think that's important feedback to hear. And then the second piece is understanding these poles are going to be sunk into concrete, mm-hmm. and any one of the drawings I'm looking at that would kind of impose on the Christmas tree and where the Christmas tree goes. And so I'm kind of thinking through that's another event that I'd say is pretty consistently equal to the other events that are currently there, and what the plan is, and if those are poles that are just there the rest of the year,
My understanding is that the poles would, along with the fabric, be removed, so that they wouldn't just be putting the sails up, they'd be putting the structure up as well, and taking that down every year.
You'd have a sleeve.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the pole would slide into the sleeve.
Could we use that for the Christmas tree, too?
We have.
Well,
we have
again,
one.
it's not the kind of thing that you want to use during the winter months, because they're not designed
No,
to.
he's talking about the
The hole.
sleeve, the hole, not
Oh.
the structure.
I believe we have one for that. Last
Yeah,
time
we've
they-
already got
a
something
sli- a sleeve
in
for
place
that.
for that, yeah.
So I've got a couple questions myself. What's the lifetime of this? Is it like just 3 years? Is it 10 years? What, we're looking at this?
Do you remember, Kelly, what they, yeah, I want to, the shade sails will need to be replaced at some point, but I want to say it was like 10 years or something like that. They
Yeah,
said.
so keep in mind, if we move forward, we'd be ironing out all the details such as that in the scope of work. And when we go out for bid, we would be asking that as a question on the different companies of what is the expected life expectancy of your different fabricant materials. So that would probably go into the equation on which company we would select for moving forward with the bid.
Do you have kind of an average, is it 2 years? Is it generally
I
10
guess it'd be
years?
more than 2 years. I mean, a fabric awning will last, 8 to 10 years on a building. So, and these will only be up about 5 to 6 months of the year.
Okay.
But I can't give you an exact time.
And my guess is the metal stands will probably last a little longer than 10 years even.
I mean, I'd hope the metal stands will last 20 years.
Right.
I mean, last year when I was out there, I think I brought it up to you, Bill,
Mhm.
and several other people. I think actually Chief Schneider I brought it up to also. So I think that's probably why he was in favor of it. But I was talking to many people, it was kind of when we were doing the dunk tank. And I think I asked 7, 8 different people, and everybody was like, yes, please do something. Because it was just so hot out there. It was kind of unbearable. So I think David's right in that if we want to see continued use and potentially increased use over time, I think some sort of structure out there is probably the best choice at this point.
So the second question, actually, thought of third while you were talking, so you probably shouldn't talk anymore.
What's that?
I thought of a third question after you were
Oh.
talking, so
Gotcha.
the more you talk, the more I'm going to ask. I noticed when I was reading some of the background on this, that they didn't like snow very well, that obviously that's a weighted thing. And I'm just wondering, we put a tent up for the lighting of the Christmas. I'm wondering if this would manage to last that long, so instead of September, put it into early December. I get the part about risky. I don't know if we could look at that. If that would be something, that there is a difference quality in the shade sails, that there might be able to last a little better for snow, or maybe there's a feature that would be able to shed the snow or something like that. Maybe you can look it into when you go to.
Maybe we could look at it.
Yeah, we could ask him.
David did get some other quotes from a few other companies. What was that other? There's some other company with kind of a similar setup, a little more heavy duty maybe, but.
Yeah, a little bit more heavy duty, but the quote that they gave us was somewhere between 80 and 120,000.
Oh, double.
So
Yeah.
at least double.
Maybe we should put a tent up. And the third thing is, I noticed that they're very colorful. I wonder if you could, when you take a look at the colors, maybe you can match up this.
That was one of the things we talked to
branding.
them about.
Yeah.
We asked them if, what kinds of colors would be available, and if we could match the branding colors. They said, sure, we can make it any color you
Okay.
want.
Great.
So maybe I'm missing this, because I think this is an important thing that we get right, but it doesn't appear that the poles in the bids come out. So it says a foundation 24-inch concrete piers, posts embedded in concrete. And so I don't know
Yeah.
that, but if that's embedded, then that means it's permanent.
Yeah,
So it's
we'd
not
have-
like a
Could be.
slip-out pole.
We'd have to make
Could
sure
be.
it's the sleeve. My understanding was that the pole you could remove each year, but we'd have to make sure when we go out for bid.
And I guess, for me at least, like if you go to option 3, Kim, so people can see what I'm talking about, for the poles that are up in the top of the stairs, probably less an issue, but the ones that are in the center of the courtyard area, probably those would need to be removable if we're gonna do other events, because it'd be really funky if we did a tree lighting, or we had any kind of programming that needed that space.
Sure, of course.
And you got poles stuck in the middle of the space, so.
I mean,
It just reads like they're permanent and they're not removable.
The way they described them to us was that they would be going in the sleeves, and the poles would be removable along with the sails themselves. But we'll
Okay.
double check that and make sure.
Did they say if the poles are retained in some manner? 'Cause-
Retained.
Yes, I can
For
picture a
storage.
wind come up,
Oh.
and they are a sail. So if it was to lift out of those
Oh, you
poles,
mean if- yeah.
that could end up in traffic and be a significant hazard.
Right, no, I believe they're designed to be bolted in once
Okay.
the framing is there.
And that was my concern as
Mhm.
well, was with the wind, how
I
they
mean,
hold up for
how
that.
you'd probably want to do it is do like this side picture at least, is you would do a locking mechanism similar to like a bollard. So the pole would slide in and then you would have an attachment that would like padlock it onto there. And then you would unpadlock it and be able to slip the pole out. I mean, we could put all that in our scope of work, that would be, you would have, whatever company bids on it, that they would have to come to the consensus of that's how it's gonna have to be done.
Well, then when it comes to the financial end of it, I don't order, purchase, or anything else with sales, but they're approximately 500 square foot or just a little bit better each. And they're averaging $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a piece. That just seems like an awful lot of money for a piece of canvas and some posts.
So at League of Oregon Cities a few years ago when we were in Bend, they had the downstairs set up in the Riverview with all the vendors, and they had a vendor down there. And it actually, my parents live in Central Point, and they have a park in Central Point that has these staged all around the outside of the water feature. And I actually came back, I told Seth about it, and I was like, we gotta check these out. So we went down and talked to the people at the booth, and they were actually the ones that put that one up. As they take it down at different times of the year, because they will get snow down there as well too, but it's a really, really durable material. And I think I want to say his were like 8 to 10 year life, and I don't know if that was a more expensive company or not, but I think for me at least, the cost piece of, yes, we may get this in the startup to get the poles and everything put in, but if every 3 to 5 years we need to come up with another 25 grand to replace the the canvas up there, it just doesn't seem like a hugely sustainable if it's only for a couple events a year. Like if it's a revenue generating thing and we can actually offset some of the expense, it seems like a more reasonable thing to do with the funds.
On the other hand, I think that the plaza is a place for, we're trying to get people together. We've lost some people, whether it's because of the heat or not, it's something that, in discussion, I guess, at the moment. But for me, the sales, colorful, providing shade, is probably an attractant. Probably going to get some people that will say, well, maybe I should put my business there, my celebration, whatever it is, because of the shade. And I'm thinking that even if it isn't a huge cost recovery, because you can charge more money per permit, I doubt that they're going to pay for the 20, 40,000, whatever it is that replaces the tarps as the years go by. But I think it is a way to attract new people to use that.
So it's kind of like a Field of Dreams thing. If we build it, they will come.
Something like that.
It's like fingers crossed they come. And I think, I mean, I'm skeptical on the usage increasing with the sales. So I think like water park with the lack of shade in the water park, the splash pad, I think there's a benefit to having more shade over there. I mean, we planted trees, but trees take a long time to grow. I think that's a big complaint I hear is just lack of shade in our parks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's something. I mean, we wait for 20 years for trees to grow.
Yeah, that would
but
be a separate fund that would.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to use
So,
urban
what
renewal
we're-
for
That's where
that.
I'd see this would be more beneficial.
But what we're
between the
hoping
two.
is that whether it's here or at one of the parks, we're just gonna buy one.
Mhm.
See how it works, see how it holds up for a few
Good
years.
idea.
And then if we like that product, then if we wanna buy it for a couple of locations, we do that. If we don't like the product, we would use a different company.
That sounds
So what I
like,
hate to see do is buy 3 or 4 of these structures, they all stink, and then we're stuck with replacing
Right.
all of them
Mhm.
again.
Right.
So I'd rather probably do one on a trial, invest the 40, 50 grand, whatever it's gonna cost, see how well it works for a couple summers, and then move forward with doing the other.
Yeah, we, on the Parks Board, it's been brought up many times, especially those of us that have young kids, at the Splash Park and other places of, hey, we want to have some shade there, and this is, you see this in other communities and other parks as well. This is a park here, and it's all made of concrete, so it actually gets a little hotter than, say, on the grass out there. One of the concerns I had here was, if you had a band playing up against Goodwill, the back of it, like we've had before, and
You
you're...
mean Thrive Fitness?
Or, I'm sorry, it's not Goodwill anymore. I apologize. But you know, can you stand in the back? Are you going to be blocked by, or is that going to be tall enough? Because I was looking at the heights, I was like, I don't know if that's tall enough to, like, to see that
stage.
band. But those are the times of year you want it. You want it set up in June and take it down in September, October, you know. It's not made for year-round. My parents have bought, you know, not this industrial grade, but, you know, a lot cheaper. But it's not gonna last as long, and it does amazing for being able, they have a place over on Eastern Oregon that it does amazing for being able to use the front deck, let's say, just that shade.
Right.
And so regardless of that, if you look at the Centennial Plaza as a park, or a space there to use, some of the features we put into it was we were never going to recoup our money as that. And I never thought of it as we're trying to recoup our money, but, you know, is it the livability of the space for our city, and is that better spent here or somewhere else? That would be the...
You know, one thing we could do is try it on a much smaller scale at the splash pad to see if we like the product.
That's
And
exactly
then-
what I was just
and then
thinking.
if- and
It's
then
not
if it
urban
is-
renewal money coming from somewhere else,
No,
but...
Yeah, but to do it on a much smaller scale, fit that need that is a concern, and then test the product, so you
Make a
get
lot of
all
parents
those
happy.
things at one time.
So I think for me, when I'm looking at this, the first thing I start to think about is, like, this is a real high priority space for anybody passing by. So the look or appearance of it is probably a key piece. And if you could, on your computer, just do a Google search for Pickathon and then click on images. And this is one, like,
It's
when
in
I
Happy
think of a
Valley.
space like that, it is.
Happy, yeah.
When I think of a space like that, I think it's something that's just going to wow everybody that drives by. That actually just is such a keynote
Oh, yeah.
piece of. So just, I mean, click on one of these images. These are all like the second one. So that's all shade sail type material. And I think, like, you drive by that and you do lighting and stuff like that, that looks super cool. And if you're putting on a concert in that area, that's not only going to provide shade, but that's going to be something that's extremely memorable when somebody drives through our town. And so, like, when I'm thinking about that, I just don't want it to look like the cheap shade sails, and not like I'm saying it's Costco stuff, but like what I've seen in a water park compared to something more like this, that's more architectural in its sense and design related. I think for that space would probably be a lot more fitting. And I'd probably be up for spending more money on something that actually has like that kind of look or feel to it.
Well, it's funny that you bring up Pickathon, because that's what got us thinking about this in the first place. Jim Austin over at Clackamas County Tourism told us to
Don't
go
go
take a
too
look at
far
their
down, Kip.
stuff.
Yeah.
The problem with
I see that.
the issue with the one at Pickathon is that the initial company that we went to, we talked to the company that put the one together there, and he was the one that quoted us $80,000 to $120,000 for out here. So
For something actually almost just like this.
Yeah, for
So
something
it was
similar.
nothing extravagant like that.
yeah, so
I can hardly
for
imagine what something like that
Right,
would,
300,000, I'm guessing.
yeah,
250.
hundreds of thousands, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the issue there, is the cost.
So as an alternative, instead of going cheap, what would putting, say, some variety of lights, maybe half dozen lights or quarter dozen lights, to make that Pickathon thing look more colorful, drawing somebody to come in? And I'm
It's a lot
thinking
cooler.
of looking for ways to draw people to come into the city of Sandy and stop for a little bit, and maybe a band would come in and play, but they had lights.
It would have to comply with your dark sky ordinance.
So we're also getting a little off the
Yeah.
topic. If I
Okay.
can redirect.
And actually, if you look at the cost of this, it's only about $1,000 a month for the months that it would be up, if it's got a 10-year life.
And also, another data point for you to consider, I had a discussion with NOPA about this the other day, to ask him about, if that was something that they considered with the mounted farmers market, and he said, yeah, it was, although there were other considerations. But he also told me, if you guys were to do something like this, they're gonna have to look at the Leathers lot. The Leathers lot is gonna get developed at some point. And he said, if we had something like this in Centennial Plaza, we'd have no trouble bringing the mounted farmers market back to Centennial Plaza.
So one thing we could do, if I throw this suggestion out there, is we only paid $600 for what's before you tonight to give us some ideas and schematics. And the company basically charges that because they have no guarantee that we're going to go with their product, because we have to put it out to bid. So for another, I think it was $2,400, this company, if you wanted to look at this company further in depth, would put together an engineered drawing and all the information we're probably looking to get handled tonight. And then that engineered drawing could then be used by this company or any other company with a
great.
similar design, and that would probably answer a lot of your questions. Either way, it's going to have to be engineered. So we can put a scope, if you guys want to go forward with something like this, either here or at a park, we're going to have to put a scope of work together, but without getting the engineering done before that, we're going to get apples and oranges. We're never going to get apples to apples on
So-
the bids.
Kelly, this company here that you've got, it's hard to see this, in 2 dimension. Is there any local places that we could, go visit that would have the,
I just happened, they gave us.
not, that I could go drive and look at?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can send you.
Probably gonna have a
Just-
hard time seeing some that are up
There's
right
a
now,
couple
though,
of
too.
examples.
That is true, it's gonna be hard. but-
That are existing right now. One
You
of
can see
them's
the
at Clean Water
poles.
Services in Hillsborough, one's at Brewery in Dallas, and one's at Papa Hyden's in Sullivan. And it's all this company, Wicca, did all 3 of those.
Yeah, my fear on a couple of these is what I was fearing there. Is it may be too low in space since we have the stairs and you have an event type thing.
Yeah,
But,
they say 13 feet on the
Well, it's 13 feet for the center or something.
and then it's like 8 feet on the.
8 feet. Yeah,
Yeah,
on
8.5
the edges,
where
yeah.
you put the, where you have the posts on the stairs.
Mhm.
inside.
So, but
So-
So that'd be up on
13
the, on
from
the
the
stairs
plaza
though, so it
floor.
would be a 13-foot height.
Correct.
Overall.
Correct.
That's,
Well, I would think.
it's a little more reasonable.
I would think that you could look up that in terms of what this engineering might be, if there isn't a desire to put something out there so we could see a band out front, or if that wouldn't work, and what all those might be back for this $2,400. I have to say, I was rather negative when I first started looking at this. I was thinking that it's a lot of money for something that I'm not sure just how successful would be, but the more I think about it, the more I'm intrigued with this. I'm thinking that this would be a good place for it, rather than putting it in a hideaway spot back over in the park in Bornsted even. And I know that my grandkids ran through the water out there in the.
in their minds, they were
Actually-
swimming through it.
My grandson did swim, actually, but he was rather stable, but this would be a good place to put it out in the open, kind of see where it looks, people look at it, and draw some interest, so
I mean,
I'm even ready to make a motion.
we could get other schematics done like this from other companies. If you're interested in that as well, it's just that each one we get done, they're probably gonna charge us, just because they know there's a decent chance we won't pick, they won't get the
Sure.
bid, so.
Mhm.
So I think they use PSU's architecture students for Pickathon every year to do all the design work. So I just wonder if it's worth a call. I mean, I guess like I like the idea of shade, but I like the idea of doing something bigger with the space. So, and I just don't want it to look cheap and spend twice on it over a period of time if we don't get it right the first time.
Do you know how big the Pickathon area is?
Massive.
huge, yeah.
It's big.
And
yeah.
So we're looking at probably, I don't know how big this plaza is, but I think it's about 4,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
they have
Pickathon-
acres and acres.
Yes.
It's a-
Yeah, we had a League of Oregon Cities, or no,
Clackamas County.
Clackamas County Cities dinner there one evening. We got a tour of the whole place, and it's expansive.
So I will tell you with something
They have like 7 or 8 stages though throughout a
Mhm.
100-acre property. So and the reality is I think it'd be worth an ask if we want it to look different, because it may save us $2,400 on asking for someone to design or draw something up for us. But I don't know. I'm a little less excited about this. I'm excited about the shade concept, and I know I'm only one vote on this board, so that's fine. But I think I'd like to see us do more. And I think it'd be a worthwhile investment to actually do something a little more architectural and design focused that I think really is an attractant other than shade.
So I'll just throw this one last thing out there. So if we go with something like this, we can definitely fit it within our existing URA budget without doing anything. We'll just take some money out of facade and put it towards this. If we go with a more robust, expensive version, it's probably gonna have to be put into the next budget cycle, my guess is. And so it's not gonna happen this summer. I don't know, I'm not saying that should play into this at all, but it probably wouldn't happen this summer if we go with a more robust, more expensive version.
And so
Just so everybody knows.
Yeah, I'm all about shade. I love shade, and wish we could get some shade on the parade side, because we burn
Oh, yeah.
our faces, or But I also wonder too. We got a lot of projects going on with the urban renewal, and other aspects of it. We got Pleasant Street. We're doing maybe a little plaza over there. We got the community center campus that we're doing, and should something like what you suggested, John, with the looks there be integrated into something that I know that's a long plan, because it's may not come, but where that all fits in, and how do how, I guess I don't want to forget about Centennial Plaza, but we have a lot of different projects, and should some of that stuff be better use of money in that aspect of it. I do think we should have shade. I mean,
But one
I'm a
thing
lover of
is this
shade.
could be done fairly quickly with a good return quickly instead of really long-term, like the other projects.
It
I kind of
could.
question the return piece.
Well,
What we're gonna gain.
I'm thinking maybe we should look at this engineering design and for now and see what that kind of brings back to us, but maybe some options about maybe a little larger, a little smaller, and see what that looks like, and then give us a chance to look at the other possibilities within the urban growth or urban renewal, I mean, and find out if we do want to go forward with a $40,000-$50,000 piece. But
Let's take a little, see if there's any input from the community out here.
Hearing none, just kidding.
Kathleen Walker, 15920 Southeast Bluff Road. You know, one of the challenges here is what's, you know, if we were going to do a new plaza and figure out where to put it, putting your public plaza to encourage concerts and all these multi-use events, you probably wouldn't locate it between two major highways. That is probably your biggest reason why you're not getting a lot of use. It's not the most desirable location for that. If you want to have a concert, we've got this beautiful amphitheater over here in Mining Park. We've got the stage. We've got concerts going on over there. So, you know, I think part of the challenge here is that we need to figure out what is the problem. And if the problem is just for the music fair and feast, we need more shade. When I was there last summer, you know, really what was needed was more, you know, those little tables with the little umbrellas on them. There was about, I don't know, 8 or 10 of them. Maybe I could be wrong on my count, but there just wasn't that many. Everybody was standing and then they were waiting and lurking, waiting for somebody to give up a table and so they could sit down. And so one of the options for your solution there would be to purchase, you know, at a fairly inexpensive price, a bunch of those little round tables with the umbrellas and stuff that people could use to have shade in the area, and also, you know, a place to sit down. Because even with those shades, you know, standing under there, you're only going to stand for, you know, so long. So my concern, though, is that this $47,000 is coming out of your urban renewal budget, which, and again, I'm always kind of like, what do we lose? You know, if we pay for this, what's not going to get funded? And what I've heard is we don't have enough money for the community campus and things like that. And so using $47,000 for, you know, and taking that away from things that need to be done at the community campus is a big sacrifice for something that's getting used, basically what I've heard is twice a year maybe, and even then it's just a few days, and there's some other cheaper solutions. So my recommendation would be to encourage people to use the spots we already have, to consider, you know, I know there's been talk about the community campus and what opportunities there are there for additional gathering spaces or multifunction events there. And so having something like this would be good. Obviously, I also want to, you know, throw in that we've, you know, as a Parks Board, we've identified the need for shade structures at the Bornstead Park and things like that. Honestly, it's a different pot of money, so it's, you know, it's not an either-or thing there. But I just think that I was just surprised to see this tonight. If it was a grant and a free money, I would say, you know, and Clackamas County and Jim Austin wants to pay for it to encourage more events, let's, you know, go crazy. But if it's coming out of our existing budget for the community campus or the urban renewal money, $47,000 is just, in my opinion, a big chunk of money, just, you know, thing that in my mind is not that big of a problem, or something that you could easily solve with some additional, you know, cheap round tables with umbrellas.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just as a point of clarity, the money wouldn't come out of the Sandy Community Campus line item within the urban renewal. It would come out of the facade, which is a separate line item from the SCC campus. So
It still affects the overall
Still affects
urban
urban
renewal
renewal.
budget,
Yeah,
though.
Which we can move around whatever we want.
But we could award that money right now to a private landowner, 41.5.
Sure.
And so the amount would be roughly the same as our top award to a facade project.
Facade project.
Okay.
So, and that only impacts one property.
Can you explain the solid project, what you said?
Facade.
Facade.
The downtown facade.
Facade.
Yeah.
Facades.
So right now, our maximum award is 41,000.
So is this something we could go to Clackamas County Tourism and get them to help pay for part of it?
A matching grant?
We could probably get a
It's
CPP
entirely
grant for that
possible,
if we
yeah.
apply for one
Yeah.
this year, yeah.
I mean, if they
So, I
have
mean,
any.
If they want to
part of
pay
it.
for part of it, then we should probably get something we really want. And I'm not criticizing the work that's been done. I just really think, like, if we want to make this thing pop and stand out, let's make it pop and stand out. And if we can get match dollars to do that, I think that's an ideal situation to be in. What I don't want to do is spend $40,000 to $50,000 on something that a few years later we're talking about again and going, hey, we could, I mean, we should, we could have, I don't want to be in that spot. I think that's a lot of money to spend without exploring if we could do more and get some match dollars too.
I mean, in all honesty, if you did want to look at that plaza, which my department kind of supervises, I do agree with Kathleen, it was
Bad
I'm
spot.
not blaming anybody, but it was not a great spot for a plaza, I don't think, in our downtown.
Right.
It's very loud. And I think it serves much better just the transit center, and that's it.
It's a great transit center.
Yes.
It's a perfect
With maybe
location
the
for it.
Christmas tree, but then I think, yeah. Anyway, so I do think Kathleen's spot on that. In an ideal world, that would be located off the highway.
With some parking.
We do year-round Christmas tree, big enough to put up shade.
They do that in
I know for
Leavenworth.
for myself, I think I would have us check with Clackamas County Tourism, see if there is some grant money there, because if we could reduce our costs on this, that would definitely change my feeling on it as well.
I think the likelihood of that would probably be pretty good.
I think so too. I mean, it's just a matter of asking, so it's not a huge imposition.
Don't tell them, like, what price range we're looking at. to spend that process. They're probably listening in.
They-
I think
they
the
probably
reality
wanna
is,
know.
Like, what's the ceiling on what they'd help us with?
Yeah.
And then
So-
who are you referring to? PSU? We can check with them.
Yeah, so PSU does all the architecture for the stage designs and facility designs for Pickathon.
And
every
probably
year.
do some engineering with that too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you know what
Well,
department that is?
architecture.
It's architecture.
It
So-
sounds like we could probably put something together that would look like a proposal, which makes it easier for us to go to other people for grants if we have some sort of design. So I don't know if PSU has a great way to give us free design, that'd be even better than
Give
if
them,
we pay for our own.
give the students a project that
Yeah.
could actually help the community.
Yeah.
So is the county grant a 50/50 or?
Yeah.
We probably need to see if we can use urban renewal as a match too.
Yeah, well, yeah, actually, they give us 20,000, that particular grant, I'm sorry, they give us, our community 20,000 a year. So what I've typically done is I wait to see, because it's really more of a community grant, I wait to see how many community members put projects up. We only typically request a project if we don't get enough from the community. Lately, that's been happening a lot. We haven't gotten a whole lot of input from the community. I think last year Ant Farm was the only organization
Oh,
that
that's
actually
right,
requested
yeah.
CPD
Mhm.
money. Thus, we filled up the rest. So we'll see how it goes this year.
When is that timeline for them?
I'd have to check. It's, we're starting to talk about it now already, though. February?
Mhm.
It's in February.
Okay. So we want to table this for now then? Is
We'll bring it
that what
back.
I'm getting? And
Yeah,
come back
we'll-
with more info.
We'll bring some
Okay,
more
we will
information back
close
to
the
you.
Urban Renewal Board and reconvene City Council, 7:38.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And thank
Phil.
you, Kelly and David.
Yeah, it's mainly it.
All good. Oh, thank you.
All right, up next, resolutions.
Once again, Kelly has brought most of, or if not all of his department with him.
Oh, good.
Emily's not here though.
Yeah, no.
Get a casting.
Yeah, but one of Emily's projects is.
Oh,
She's
okay,
here in
okay.
spirit.
She got to take the night off.
So she had a
before
running
you-
party yesterday.
Right now is the consideration for Resolution 2018-35. The November 6, 2018 general elections resulted in a majority of votes approving the annexation of two parcels, approximately 38.05 acres, into the city limits. As a reminder, these are the two parcels that are just north of Sandy Grade School that the city acquired when we purchased the middle school. Per state statute, the city council has to proclaim the annexation effective through a resolution or ordinance. Therefore, staff is recommending that you guys approve Resolution 2018-35, making the annexation effective.
Okay, any questions, comments, discussion, motions?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-35 proclaiming the annexation ballot measure 3-540 effective.
I'll second that.
Motion by John, second by Jeremy, that we approve Resolution 2018-35 proclaiming the annexation from ballot measure 3-540 effective. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for all your hard work with that one, too.
Yeah.
Great to see it there.
Second reading.
Oh, is that a first reading?
That's a resolution. We don't need a
not an
second reading.
ordinance. I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just ordinances.
Yeah, ordinance, we have to have 2 readings. Resolution's a single.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You're fine.
I was like, just adding more to the plate.
You're all right. It's okay.
Go and do
All
good.
right. Up next, amending Section E of the master fee schedule.
Oh, I skipped one. There we go.
I see old business next.
You got right above
You
that
skipped past it.
6.2.
Oh, I see, yep, got it. My turn.
And you will note the electronic voting is not functioning right now. We are doing it the old way.
What happened
Tried
to our
and true.
recorder here?
We're working on getting that technical difficulty cleared up, so I'm going back a few decades and doing some manual voting right now.
Okay.
The end result's still the same.
Go vote.
Still on camera. It's still a record of it.
Okay, Mike?
This is a resolution that would modify the city's fee schedule to include 2 fees. One for the cost of making, have public works staff perform inspections for public sewer and storm lateral connections. Currently, these inspections are performed by the building department, and nothing would change with the building department's role in this. It would just be the connection to the public sewer that we would observe. We propose a fee of $71 for this. This includes our staff time for plan review, travel, inspections, and record keeping. When this happens, we send somebody, they go to the as-built, look those up, see where the connections are, visit the site to make sure that they connect the sewer pipe to the sewer line and the storm drain pipe to the stormwater line. This has been a problem in the past, and so we feel it's better to have 2 sets of eyes looking at this, and the public works staff is more familiar with the difference between the 2 connections, and we think we get a little better end product as a result of having 2 sets of eyes on this. We're not really doubling up. It's not like 2 people are doing the same thing at the same site. It's just one inspector's looking at the portion regulated by the plumbing code, and then the public works portion of it would looking at the connection to the sewer line or the storm drain line itself. And then the other fee would be for, this has become more prevalent. I'm sure Councilor Exner can fill you in on this. It seems like with every new home sale, somebody's a home inspector does a video inspection of the sewer lateral.
Yep.
And I don't know whether there's just been a flurry of home sales recently in Sandy, or these are almost, common on every home sale. But, in the last probably 2 months, we've probably done a half dozen of these. Before, it was a pretty rare thing. And so it does take up a lot of staff time, and you have the buyer calling, and you have the seller calling, and you have the buyer's agent, and you have the listing agent, and then you have the selling agent. And it's just, you deal with a lot of different people answering essentially the same question multiple times. So we think it's only reasonable to recover some of our costs associated with this.
And what are they calling the city for? Because they're doing their own video scope.
Yeah.
Are they asking you to do a video scope as well?
No, they're saying, we found this problem, and we think it's a problem, and, can you look at this and tell us whether it's a problem? Now, we don't get involved with this thing on the private lateral side, but sometimes they'll inspect the entire lateral, and they'll get into the public side of it, and
They want a consultation.
they want a consultation. And when somebody, and so, we don't think we're pretty careful. We don't want to take on any extra risk. We're only commenting on what we see in the public right of way. But they, if you have this independent third party performing the review, giving you the information, but they don't, assign any relative risk or hazard to it. You know, they just say, here's the information, panic or ignore it. And there seems to be only two reactions. And so they ask the city to comment, and we say, okay, we'll take a look at it. And then, you know, it's a big hassle getting the file to you, and sometimes anyway, I don't want to get too far along in this, but it does take up a lot of staff time.
So they video scope it down through the private, and when it hits the public right away, the public side of it, that's what they're asking for advice on.
Right, you know,
So they're
so we say
going
that-
farther beyond the private
Yes,
property
they do.
line into
Really?
the
Right.
public line.
Really, this is mostly for an older home. It's not some of the newer stuff, but what you end up with is
Right.
dips in the lines or broken
Roots
roots,
and-
all kinds of
yeah.
things. But if, and they do, by the way, I've seen several of them that go into the main lines where the city's responsibility are. But that's actually the city's responsibility. So if there's a
Right.
problem
Right.
there, they should be dealing with the city and to fix it. But everything else, all the ones that I'm always aware of, I tell the buyer that if that's a problem, then when you purchase the house, go to the city and have them fix it if there's an issue there. But otherwise, all they're responsible for, and usually between the seller and buyer, is that piece of private between the house and where the main is. So, I guess if there's a lot of interaction going on, in the ones that I've done, I guess I haven't done much talking to you or your staff, because maybe I know more about that than what's responsible for the buyers, but boy, if there's a problem in the main, I guess it should be something we should do about it, right?
Well, what we do is generally we look and see if we have any records of service calls at the address, and we usually ask the seller, you know, how long have you lived there, if you had a problem. And so we kind of compile this information and give that to the buyer and say, you know, A, we haven't had any service calls at this address. The house was built in 2002 or 1994, whatever. And, you know, we go back through the records, check when it was built, go back and see if we've had any service calls there, and then, you know, ask the buyer or ask the buyer to comment on whether they've, you know, they said, oh, I've lived here for 19 years, I've never had a problem. So that's what we put in the letter and say, you know, we don't think it's risen to the, you know, a lot of times, like I said, there's two reactions here. It's either they don't care about it or they panic about it. And so we kind of have to like mediate between those two extremes and say, here's the reality, here's the facts, and, you know, do with this what you will.
You'll probably lose a lot of people asking you, because it only costs about $150 to $200 to do that scope.
Yeah.
Unless they gotta take the toilet out, and then they gotta feed
Right.
that, but, is it the $50 is the one you're talking about? That's probably gonna slow a lot of people down.
Yeah, and that's the issue too. I mean, you know, they're paying for an inspection of the private lateral, but they keep going, and then then the city gets dragged into it because there's this, you know, what looks questionable or concerning on the city side of it. We usually just say, no, the city's responsible for it. If there's ever a problem, you won't have to worry about this. You know, and that's what we convey in the letter. But a lot of times, you know, then the buyer calls up and says, well, you know, they told me that the city's responsible for it. So then you get this parade of calls and emails from 4 different parties on a single instance.
Mike, to section 1, the connections for the stormwater are, what kind of impact are we seeing from stormwater being connected into the sanitary sewer system? Is that a significant impact on our inflow into that system?
Yes, it is. And, you know, we've probably had maybe a half dozen of these in the past couple of years, well, in the past 2 years. And then so it may be a more widespread problem than we think it is. So we're starting to do the smoke testing to find out. But just in the last 2 years, I think we've had 5 of these in one development. And it may just be confined to that development, but we just think it's better if we have, you know, 2 sets of eyes looking at these connections.
But I know in the last couple of years, we've actually hired somebody to inspect a considerable amount of the sewer lines for inflow that is not coming from homes and businesses, but potential stormwater runoff impacting our sewer treatment plant capacity. What's your thoughts on what we're going to find in this in the future? Is it a significant impact on?
Well, I think this will prevent this from being an issue in the future if we have, you know, if we're a little more diligent with these inspections. You know, a lot of times the building inspector is very busy. You know, they might have 20, 30 inspections a day, and they may be more focused on, you know, structural issues related to the home, and, you know, they may not give the attention to these things that they deserve. And so we said, well, we kind of discussed this internally. We said, the public works staff can take care of these, but and that way we'd make sure that we got the right pipe connected to
Okay.
So the question I had is, when you get your permit, you're paying for that already. So now we're going to ask them to pay twice the amount of money?
Well, we're doing twice the number of inspections, when you.
Right, but it's being inspected already.
Well,
Even
that's
though it
been
may
the
not
problem.
be a quality inspection focused on that
Yeah.
for the expertise that's being shown, but from the person writing the check,
Right.
that's not my problem, is writing the check, though.
Yeah.
I built 2 houses, and so I'm a little nitpicky on
Yeah.
all the line items on, I had to pay for my
Yeah.
building permit, so.
That's a good point, but.
Can you just move that line item over to your department in the building permit?
Well, the building permit, I don't think there's, it's based on I think it's only based on there's like a standard fee for a single-family dwelling, or it's based on the feet of pipe or something. So it's usually a pretty small amount. But that's been the issue, is that, you're paying for this inspection, but in some instances, it has been missed. And that creates a direct impact to our treatment system by
I agree it
adding
does,
rainwater
but-
to it when it shouldn't be.
As the person on the other end writing the check,
Yeah.
I've already paid for it once. I'm paying for it twice. I mean, it all ends up in the price of the bill, but, I mean, you take that fee out of the other and move it over to your department, if your guys are gonna go do it, they're the experts in which pipe goes which way. We don't need the planning inspector, or the building inspector doing it too. I mean, it's like government work. We're having people looking at the same projects, and me
Yeah,
as
I mean,
writing
there's-
the permit, and now having to pay more money for it.
Yeah. I mean, there's still work that the building inspector would perform on the pipe from the dwelling to the connection at the public right-of-way. This has just been an instance where
Yeah.
we just want to make sure that they're connecting to the proper pipe.
Are these new houses, or are these old houses you're talking
No,
about?
these are all new. This was all
Brand new construction.
So they should be all part of that initial inspection that goes in with the connections to the mains and everything. I'm thinking, you've already got it open, and when, I'm assuming it's Terry or somebody like that, that's gonna be doing that inspection. I don't know if he does the sewer lines or not, but somebody's gonna have those wide open, and they're gonna be part of that inspection cost, aren't they? I guess I'm in Jeremy's boat at the moment here. We've already got that opened up on the new ones. The old ones, I could see putting a new house on an old location. You haven't got them dug out, you're gonna do something different. But on the new houses, new developments, that's pretty much all opened up, isn't it?
Yes, but the mistake still happens, so that's the issue.
But is it the builder's problem, or is it the city's issue, right? That's what I'm coming back to. We're already paying for an inspection. If I'm the person coming out for the permit, now you're asking me to pay twice so I can have another set of eyes sitting out there, so that the first guy doesn't make a mistake. I see your
Well, I
point,
think-
I get your point,
Yeah.
but I feel like this is kind of
Double dipping?
double dipping,
Yeah.
I'd be
just
supportive
at
of
the
it,
cause of it.
putting a new house on an old location and all that, but for the new house on a new location, I can't see the rationale for it, but, and I probably wouldn't be in favor of it.
Yeah, I don't think I would be, I mean, when we did it, we had to test the water beforehand, before it got connected. They're out there, and, I mean, you had to fill up the pipes all the way, you knew which one was your sewer, and,
Well, they don't let you
So-
bury those pipes until they've been inspected.
right.
So
That's what I'm saying, I've been
they're
through the
wide
process
open,
twice.
People are walking down those lines, making sure they're right, so.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's what, but it's still happened though, where these cross connections have
Good.
occurred. And where, whether it's just been limited to this one development, or is in other areas of the city, we don't know yet. And maybe we could come back in the future if it turns out that there's.
Could there be
many
more
things.
training done?
Well, I
for the
think the real
inspector?
issue is,
Capacity of the inspector.
well, I think the real issue is that if where it gets sticky is, okay, this happens, the builder's gone, they might have a 1-year homeowner warranty, they're long gone, we discover this problem, and it's like, who do we go after, the homeowner? That doesn't look good, because, obviously, there was an error on the city's part.
Right, there's
And
I
the,
think we go
this.
after the inspector.
The inspector.
And so we can't go after the homeowner, so the city's gonna, on the hook for making these.
I'd say rightfully
corrections.
so, because they were the ones that screwed
Oh,
up.
I agree, yeah. that
We agree with that, we're just trying to mitigate that from happening in the future.
I just want to bring some clarity to this, because the decision here impacts my department as well. And part of the issue that you're seeing is that a lot of these were done in like 2014, 2016, they weren't really done. They were done like 5, 6 years ago, even though we just found out about them recently. But,
So you got a backlog of these things, it looks like you can have?
We had,
Because that's, I didn't realize that.
6?
2 in 2014, and 2 in 2016, and 1, maybe 1 in 2000.
Okay, so
Maybe 3 in 2016.
How are we identifying these? How are
Well,
we
we've
finding
been
them?
smoke testing and some, when we did the facilities plan, they did the flow monitoring and they identified the basins that had the highest amount of flow relative to the number of dwellings in the basin. And what surprised us was one basin where none of the homes are older than 1998. And we said, well, why is this
Yeah.
an issue? And so we've been focusing in that basin and some of these other basins that don't seem to fit the pattern of having old leaky pipes.
So I guess what I came up mainly to say is that in our attempt to be very friendly to these developers and builders, we were doing the practice of, hey, we're trusting you, take a picture, send it to us. And that evolved into, we're trusting you. They were already burying them before Terry even got out there. So then it was either we made them dig it up or we just let them pass. So we let them pass. And in a few of the instances, there's not even an inspection record on these, on the ones that are on the state. So, and then Terry's went out to several of them where they're 8 to 10 feet down. By code, if it's greater than 6 feet, they're supposed to put shoring in.
Right.
So there's no shoring, he can't see the pipe. So so the different options are, okay, you guys, I'm gonna leave. You somehow figure out how to unbury part of this pipe again, and I'll come back for another inspection, which we do a re-inspection fee for $55.
Right.
Almost to the 80-something. Or he could have said, hop down in there and unbury that, but he's never done that. He's always told them, I'm not making you go down in that hole, because if the trench was to collapse, I think we would be
Right.
liable for it.
Right.
So I think it's been a lot of leniency because we're trying to be friendly with these builders, but it's kind of caught us.
They're taking advantage of it.
We were definitely taking advantage of it, and especially by one, I won't name the developer, but by one developer where a lot of these are. And they're no longer in town, so I don't think we'll have that same issue, but they were building, 12, 13 houses at a time. Probably not as conscious as they should have been to detail, and a lot of these came in that subdivision.
So I guess instead of penalizing everyone else in the future with this double billing, is maybe we should change our practices, and
We're doing that as
so
well. We're doing
maybe that
as
will
well.
help
I
going
mean,
forward.
the real issue is not the cost. The real issue is making sure it's done correctly. But, we should try we don't want to have an indirect subsidy from the utility funds to, the building fund, but, that would be the result of this. If we don't charge the fee, we'll still do the inspection because it's more important to us and it's, saves money in the long run if we prevent these things from happening. So, if it's not necessary to try and cover that cost, then, we would still do it. It would still be done.
It seems to me that you have an open ditch with a sewer pipe going down it, and you're about to approve it. You should be looking at it. That's what they did to me when I put my house in. They would not let me bury that puppy until I saw, they came in, looked at it, made sure everything was shored or in proper place, and all that sort of thing. Maybe it takes a little bit longer to do that, and maybe we should increase the cost of that particular fee, but going back again and re-inspecting it the second time sounds like a duplication, when we should be just doing it right the first time, right?
Yeah, I agree. Should have been done right the first time.
And then these are all 20-year-old houses, it sounds like. They aren't the new ones?
I think the oldest permit, or on the most recent ones we've discovered, was in 2014.
Just recently.
Yeah.
4 years. That's a bad developer then. Somebody is doing something wrong there. And as a buyer, man, I would not want to have my toilet flushed, backed up, and I bought a house just 5 years ago.
No. And we don't, on the 2 that we've had corrected so far, they were within the 1-year homeowner warranty, and so we were able to
Go back to the builder.
lean on the builder, or lean on the homeowner who leaned on the builder to make this happen. The homeowner wasn't out anything, but on these other ones where it's gone beyond the warranty, we don't want to go after the homeowner. They're kind of innocent in this whole.
So is the issue we don't have enough inspector time? Or is it that
No,
we
I
need to
think
see it the second
I
time?
think what happened was, back prior to Kelly, the issue was that the photographs were being allowed to be used for inspection purposes. Things got connected incorrectly and missed because it's impossible for the inspector to tell from a photograph. So since we've just recently uncovered this problem, we've changed that behavior so that they can no longer submit just a photograph.
Okay.
So we fixed that. I think the issue for Mike was just that rather than have Terry look at that, having somebody from Public Works look at it seemed more prudent. I take Jeremy's point though, where we're already charging for an inspection.
Yeah.
But now we're sending 2 people out to do the inspection. We're sending Terry for all of the other stuff and Public Works for just this specific piece to make sure it's done correctly. And I think that's what's gotten Mike interested in charging that second fee to cover the cost of his staff.
Got it. Got it.
Right?
Got it. So it seems like though you still have a fee to be able to inspect that sewer pipe, but
Yep.
maybe we need to charge a little bit more to make sure that we have a complete inspection rather than 2 inspection fees. Maybe a little bit more to make sure that everybody, or that person in the Public Works gets there and does his job, has time to do the job.
So basically,
maybe a
what we're
increase.
saying is the same thing, is we could increase the basic fee or the basic permit by $71, shave that cost off and funnel that
Part of it
Mike.
goes to Public
But
Works
we're
instead of
still-
all staying
We're still
in.
doing the same thing, we're still increasing either the permit by $71 or charging an additional fee.
But I
of
think it's
$71.
different for Jeremy's point of when you go in, here's the fee.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get hit later with
Right.
something else that wasn't listed.
Well, it would all be charged
But-
at the time the permit was issued.
Right, but it's how it's been
Yes.
presented tonight as, hey, we want this for another inspection.
Right.
And I go, we already got the same one
Part
inspection,
of the
so.
same. And unless of
But-
course, though, we find a home that's already built that fails the smoke test, we go back and they work to fix it, then we're gonna have to inspect it.
That's a different story though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
that's-
talking about people who are actually building houses. But that $71 increase, that sounds like it's a pretty, detailed calculation. Do you need the full $71 to put that extra person out there enough to be able to, with the old charge? So you must be getting
You're doing it for
$100 or
zero
something?
now.
Well, we're doing,
Yeah.
there is no separate charge if on a residential building permit for that. It's just buried in the plumbing permit cost. And whether it covers, the building inspector's time or not, probably not, but that's what the state fee schedule is, and that's
Sure.
what we're stuck with. And so, that's, if we're gonna have it's not the same thing being inspected twice. We're focusing on the connection to the public sewer line is what we want to focus on, so we don't get these mix-up. You would think, well, gee, what's the big deal? There's 2 separate pipes, they're 2 separate colors, they're 2 separate sizes, but somebody comes in and says, well, gee, in Salem, all the laterals are 4-inch, so I just connected to the 4-inch pipe. I didn't even bother to look for the other one. I just connected to the first pipe I found when I was digging. And so, what we're trying to prevent is, that's why the cost is a little higher, because we're thinking that, we want somebody to go back to the original plans for the utilities in the subdivision, say, okay, this pipe is 13 feet from the east of the west property line, this pipe is 27 feet west to the east property line, this is the one you should connect the sewer line to, this is the one you should connect the stormwater line to. And so, that isn't done when it's just, you just send somebody out there, okay, the connection looks good, I'm assuming that you know what you're doing and that you know which pipe is which, you didn't just connect to the first pipe you saw when you dug it up.
So is your Public Works person currently being paid out of those standard fees?
No.
And that's just short, is that what it is? So you're not getting any money at all?
Well, we just started this
I was gonna say, before
we
this,
just
it
did
was
the
always
first
the building
one.
inspector.
Right.
I think we did the first one last week.
So, my guess is.
So we didn't
that-
collect any fee for that. It's more, like I said, if we're not gonna collect the fee, don't wanna change the fee schedule, that's fine, we're still gonna do the work. to make sure it's done right, because that's more important to us. And the impacts to the, treatment system as a whole is far greater than $71 per single-family dwelling.
It sounds to me like you've got more inspection happening, and you want to make sure you cover that price-wise, and to me, that's very effective and very reasonable. It's the two charges, and I guess I'm thinking that if you're going to take over some work, you ought to get some sort of money from whatever fee that was standard already, and then if it takes the $71 extra to make that, what you're talking about right, then maybe that's the right fee charge.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're still going to do it, whether we cover our cost or not.
Okay.
This is just our recommendation to cover our costs, but we're still going to do it to make sure it's done correctly, because the impacts of not doing it correctly are so great.
So was the $71, that's what you thought it was going to cost to do this?
That's for labor and the research to, go back to the as-built and look that up, make sure you get the right one, you know exactly where they are on the lot, and then to photograph it and then file it away. We're going to keep a record of all these connections, so we have these in the future and we know.
But the $71 was calculated in terms of not getting any money at all from the other fees?
Correct.
So $71 is what it's going to cost you?
Yeah.
Okay. And we can't get the money from the other fees to add to this? So
I don't know how they.
either it's $30 or $100?
The plumbing
already?
permit on a single-family dwelling, on a standard one in a subdivision, is calculated on the number of feet of pipe, and it's, so much per, the first 100 feet are covered by the standard fee. I think it's like $69 for water, sewer, and storm, and roof drains and low point drains and foundation drains. There's like 5 different pipes to look at, and they're all covered underneath the single. So we're losing money probably on the building permit end of it too, because we're just using the state fee schedule. I could look that up. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's not very much for a single family dwelling plumbing permit.
So maybe raising the plumbing fee would be helpful.
Well, that's
I don't know if
essentially
we
what.
can. That might be a kind of a state search.
You have to split it
state
out between 2 different
thing.
departments then somehow.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to actually, I don't believe, I'd have to talk to the state of Oregon about this, but I don't believe you could just take portion of the building plumbing money that we're currently charging, or even if we increased it, and redistribute it to one of Mike's other funding accounts. Because as you remember, the building fund has to pay for itself. And if we collect money for a building permit charge, I don't believe you can then redistribute it to a sewer account charge, I believe.
We could probably find a way to move money, transfer money, but we couldn't do it out of the state plumbing fee schedule that we charge for single-family dwellings.
It would have to be an additional new fee.
Yeah.
In essence, this is what it is. It's part of the permit to go do a
Right.
second guy out there, gal, looking at this. Can we not retrain the person doing out there in
The
showing
first
them
time.
that information so that
Yeah.
only one government employee is out there looking at it versus another set of
Because
eyes?
I
I'm
think
in
the
kind
problem
of the
is-
same school of thought on that, because we obviously had an issue with someone trusting a little bit too much on the builders, letting them take pictures or say it's all good. If we've resolved that issue and we've got a plan to remedy that moving forward, I just don't know why we're doing it again if we feel like that problem's fixed.
Yeah,
Fix
I
the
would
problem
like to take
versus-
things off the building inspector's plate instead of maintaining what he already has. He's already stretched very thin, and I've tried to hire other inspectors, I think on 3 separate occasions, and I've been unsuccessful. Because nobody wants to work part-time and nobody wants to work as a contractor. So I don't want to leave this on Terry's plate, I really need it to put Mike's guys.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is too, is that, we do only have a single building inspector. We do a lot of permits here. They might have 20 or 30 inspections in a day. And, so these may not be truss nailing or truss plate inspection is a structural thing that's very important. Wind load is very big, wind and snow load are very important. So that's probably gets, rightly so, gets a lot more attention maybe, and some of these might, not be scrutinized as closely when you have this many inspections in a day.
So are you planning on putting $71? This is proposal on every single house from here on out that's being built? Or are you talking about older houses because of the problems
Any
an
plumbing
history.
permit where there's a connection to a sewer line and a stormwater line.
So yes, it's every new
new house.
house and any new old house, tear down and build a new one there where they have to reconnect to it.
Any remodeling or significant
Well,
remodeling.
remodel that moves the
Moves plumbing.
connection.
Yes.
Well, I'm all for making sure that we're doing it right, because if I buy a house and in 5 years or 10 years later it is not working, I'm pretty mad. Especially if the builder has gone on and you say this particular one has gone on, right? He's no longer around.
I don't think we'll be successful in,
Recouping
with our
anything.
polite letter asking them to resolve this issue.
Not after 10 years, 20 years.
Well,
I
but the
guess.
city also said, stamp, yep,
It's all good.
it's all good.
Right, that should be
Actually,
good.
'Cause
that's
that's-
not true.
well, that's-
On one of them, we never got an inspection done. So in our Sandy way of being nice, we gave them C of O, let the people move in, and it was never inspected.
So
So we
that was
signed
our
off on
mistake
it.
still.
Oh, there's no
on that.
record of it, at least.
I guess you
So-
could look at it as our mistake, but.
But
We
from
let
here on
them
out,
move
you're gonna
in.
have a stamp, right? Or some sort of signature sign off that says.
We had a final occupancy.
Well, we're gonna have
right.
we're gonna keep a separate
So,
record of these connections to the public sewer line and public works. We're gonna have a photo, we're gonna have it, so we can go back to these, on this date, this happened, here's what it looked like before it was covered, those kinds of things.
Well, what's the cost for all the fees that go on to inspection now for a $300,000 house?
With
$400,000.
SDCs?
Yeah,
About 22 grand.
and you're gonna add 71 more bucks. That's a fairly small amount to it, but we got this 22 grand because we did step by step by step.
I was gonna say, when I built my house, 10, 11, 12 years ago, and it was like 11,000, 10,000, 5 years prior to that, we've kind of increased it quite a bit.
But I think it's important to emphasize that the building permit is a very tiny part of that $22,000. It's probably only about
I think it's
4,000.
12 to 14% of the 22 grand.
Yeah.
$2,000-3,000.
About 3,500.
I know, everybody else in the city gets their cut of it as well, like parks and
Well,
others.
it's mainly SDC.
SDC.
SDC
But-
is the biggest part of it.
But that's what I'm saying, when I built my house here 12 years ago, it was, 10 grand less.
Mhm.
That's pretty big increase in a small amount of time.
And a gallon of milk costs about the same as a gallon of milk today.
I know inflation happens, but it all goes up $5 at a time or whatever, and we've sat here and talked about that, but
Well, seems like we're kind of beating around the bush on this one. Do we have further discussion? Or are we ready for a motion?
We got two pieces to it, right? You have the $50 and the $71 in this.
Yeah, it's all under the same resolution.
one
You could
motion.
adopt the
Unless you wanna
resolution
pull-
with one, the other, or neither.
Or modify, or, whatever.
the other one, now I've talked about this one for so long.
I think as a homeowner, I'd rather be paying the extra fee and have some security of the system than some of the things I've heard about.
If we give you the $71, would you go after the other fees if you could, to get a percentage of the other fees? See if that would be something you can grab onto, so we don't have to worry about an increase in the future? I know things happen to go more expensive as the years go by.
Yeah, but this, once this would be, we were looking at the cost for a single, part of it was based on what do we pay for a single callback inspection? I think our fee for that is $55 for the building inspector to go back out on a missed inspection, it wasn't ready or whatever, which we rarely charge. Usually we don't charge for a re-inspect
okay.
fee. And I think, the consensus was it was closer to $80, was the true cost of that. But, that's in the fee schedule, so that's what we charge.
So I guess I'd have maybe less heartburn if we took that out of the building inspecting altogether. You could add that and have just Public Works, when you're doing it, they come out and do the inspection, versus having two people on site looking at the same hole
Yeah.
to do the same thing, because that just kind of bothers me. Where,
I guess to sum it up though, then we're having all the rest of the taxpayers subsidize that inspection.
no, what I'm saying is being able to add that as part of the permit process, take that off of the building inspector's
Oh,
plate
yeah, yeah.
and putting it on there, because he's too busy anyways.
Mhm.
Don't take it out there. Go ahead and increase it $71.
Right, okay.
But then not be requiring the building inspector to be there too. It's just having too
Well-
much government looking down a hole to
Yeah,
say.
I don't think it's that simple. A certified plumbing inspector still has to review the connection from the home, you know, the pipe all the way out there. We're just looking at the connection. That's all that,
Yeah.
extra is taking place. It's not like it's the same trench. There might be 70 feet of trench, and, you know, the building inspector's still looking at that, and there's a water line,
Right.
sewer line, low point, there's many things that they're looking at, that they're getting, you know, that is included in that fee. This is just to look at the
connection point.
Junction of the
And I
two.
understand that. That's, we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
That's, you know, having, hey, this has got to be certified by them, you know, that's part of that new call-in feature then I guess you do, to have that done. But
So I would
perception
make-
is a huge piece of it, I guess.
I would
and-
make a motion to get us to come to some decision.
Well, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was saying is, I'd be willing to do that if that was how it was kind of
Yeah.
played out or written out versus
Well, I guess I was thinking.
saying you need to have a building inspector inspect the connection in the public works inspection, or we just, you know, do some retraining.
Yeah, I was thinking about making a motion to just give them the 71 and the 50, and like you say, if there's any way we can grab that money off of the other fees. Otherwise, I don't see how it's going to be able to be funded. I don't really like the idea of having somebody do something in the city that doesn't get paid for some way. So we're taking away from somebody else all along.
But it's supposed to be. I mean, the reality is like the inspector should be able to look at this, inspect all of the pipe, and make sure that that connection is correct.
That's why they.
But we're doing a second set of eyes on it because we've had issues in the past. So that, for me at least, like if we have such a high demand and need another inspector, I'd hope through the next budget process that comes forward. But the reality for me is it's kind of like doing work twice and charging the consumer for work that we should just do right the first time.
Last 100 years, we haven't had
I
that.
think the reality is more to John's point is, we haven't been able to get another inspector. And having
And
public.
part-time or
and-
contract. And so that's why I say through the budget process, I mean, if it's something desperately needed to where we're taking people's advice on a picture, or just saying, hey, it's all good. I mean, if we had 5 or 6 homes over that period of time, that's concerning enough for me to say, put a proposal together for a full-time position if that's the only way to hire for that.
But how do you
So we
afford
actually.
them? You got to figure out how to pay for that person.
But that's why I'm suggesting it, because if we're going through another budget process here in the next year or so, I think the reality is if it's that important and if it's causing that much of a disruption that we've talked about it for 30 minutes, we probably need to have a conversation about staffing for that position in the city. If this person spreads so thin that it's causing these kind of issues, and it's not just an issue of are they doing a good job of the work that they're expected to do, if that's the case, we need to evaluate if there's need for additional position or FTE there.
I don't think the person is so thin that that's what caused the issue. I think what caused the issue was a different mindset as far as the department and the way, the culture of that department and what they wanted to have as far as the friendly piece. But, you know, $71 is a lot cheaper than hiring a full another FTE inspector. I don't know if the downturn that they're anticipating in the economy comes, you're gonna wanna have a full another FTE that's only form of pay is through the building permit process, then you're gonna end up with a layoff. So rather than throw an entire FTE at it, this is a lot less expensive option to get that inspection done properly by staff that we already have, but just offsetting that cost a small bit.
I mean, if it did happen in the future that we did have less of a burden on the building department staff where they weren't doing 20 or 30 inspections a day and, you know, not being able to spend, you know, the necessary amount of time looking at each aspect of a particular inspection, then we'd get rid of its fee because we'd have the staff to do it. At this point, you know, that's what we're proposing.
Yeah, I'm not asking for approval for additional FTE tonight. I'm encouraging the planning director to think about if that would be a good utilization of additional FTE in the future. And not to decide tonight, obviously, but that's where I'm at with it.
I would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-36, amending Section E of the Master Fee Schedule.
I'll second.
Motion by Jan, second by Carl, that we approve Resolution 2018-36, amending Section E of the master fee schedule. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
3-2.
3-2, what was this?
It was 2 nays, correct?
3?
What did you?
Two nays.
I said yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
so it's 4-2.
14.
Passes. Okay, old business. Tree Code Committee update. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
So this one should be pretty fast, hopefully. So we had the, I don't know what we want to call it, the ruckus in the council chambers or whatever, with a lot of people coming out and testifying against the urban forestry proposals that staff had brought before you. You guys had suggested putting together a committee, and Emily and I have been working with Bill, Mr. King, on finding different people to find a balanced approach. Emily also reached out to the state of Oregon, Lake Oswego, who's one of the champions of tree retention in the state, the city of Salem, and many other communities to kind of find out what approaches they used. And everybody pretty much agreed that you want a city councilor on there, a planning commissioner, an arborist, an engineer, surveyor, developer, Parks Board member, and somebody from like a River Basin or Audubon Society. So what we're bringing before you tonight is our recommended list of different committee members. We haven't nailed down who the arborist would be yet, just because we're having a little bit of hard time getting anybody to commit to it for a volunteer-based ad hoc committee. But the other idea that we might do is have the committee meet 4 or 5 times, bring a proposal, and before it comes before you to have an arborist that we'd probably have to pay to look at the code proposal and see if it kind of passes muster with other codes that they've seen in other cities. So these are the people on the left column in the table at the bottom, and their affiliation is on the right-hand side.
Who will staff this?
The planning department, and it would basically be Emily and I, and then Carl would be, if you select this committee membership, he would be your affiliate from city council, and then, so we'd be talking closely through Carl, who would then be probably getting feedback from different council members if need be.
Yep, I would do that.
None of these proposed members are attorneys, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Good point.
We had some interest in getting an attorney on the committee from a developer group, and we told them, after consulting with our attorney too, that we didn't think that was a wise decision.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's a number of names on here that I don't know the people personally, and I just want to make sure that we aren't setting ourselves up for conflict.
Yeah, and a few of these people, such as the last 2 names before the question mark there, I have never met these individuals either. However, they've been highly recommended by other organizations as kind of tree advocates and people that know the environmental impacts of removing trees. And both of the people, I don't think they live in city limits, but they live in the Sandy, Boring, Greater area.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know Susie Cloder, but I think she lives just outside the city. She's a reasonable person. I don't know the other one, though.
Well, I'm seeing potentially 4 environmental, if you will, folks on here, and only 1 builder and 1 developer.
I would say the engineer and surveyor is very pro tree removal.
Mhm. That's true.
And our city councilor is a realtor.
And a forester.
Forester, though,
And a
yeah.
forester.
30 years of forestry, licensed and all.
As you all know, with any committees that are formed, I guarantee at least one of these, or if not 2 of these individuals, will attend 1 to 2 meetings and drop off.
I just wanted to be
That's
sure
pretty
we
much how
had
it always
balance.
works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd also like to see some sort of deadline. I don't want this to go on. I'd have other careers going on in my life. I don't want to have this one.
So our idea
my
was,
career.
our idea, and this was something we would want to run by the committee, is finding a time in January or February to meet. Get kind of the idea and the scope of work of what everybody wants to see out of this, bring it back, and this is what 3 different jurisdictions recommended we do. Bring it back to city council with their ideas, and then you would give us
Guidelines.
guidelines and say,
Yeah.
yes, we love this idea, no, we think this one's a little overreaching. And then from there, we'd probably meet another 3 times and come up with a code that we would then bring back before you.
Sounds reasonable.
Can you give me a copy of those, emailed to me?
Give you a copy of.
Those things that you got from the other cities, how they did their process?
Yeah, we would probably send them to all the committee members,
Okay.
just so everybody has the same information. Yeah, Lake Oswego and City of Salem are both very instrumental in telling us the do's and don'ts of how to do a tree committee. They both went through some nightmares, I guess.
Okay,
Any
good.
questions, comments?
Make a motion that we approve the list of the tree committee as stated.
Second.
Motion by Jeremy, second by John, to approve appointing the following committee members to the Ad hoc Tree Code Committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Should
Thank you.
Carl abstain from voting?
I didn't.
Remember.
I didn't second it, so I thought I'd
There
say it
is
about that way.
no financial benefit to
That's
him.
right.
I think he'll be all right.
All
I
right.
just went to a training session of all about that, so.
I just wanted it to go a little bit longer. Okay.
Thanks,
Oh,
John.
good for you.
All right. Parks and Trail Master Planning Update.
It's me again, and I'm going to be a little bit longer than 2 minutes, I'm sure. So bear with me, please. So back in 2017, internally there was some discussion about where the Parks Master Planning kind of fell as far as in what department. Kelly O'Neill volunteered a portion of Planning Division's time. And then in 2018, I was hired, and that responsibility has fallen on my lap. So I was asked to give a bit of an update of what we've done over the past year, some of the things we've come up with, and some of the next steps that we've wanted to take. So over the past year, kind of looking at reviewing our applicable codes, specifically the 1997 Parks Master Plan, as well as the Sandy Development Code, Comprehensive Plan, and Transportation Plan has really been a big effort. Looking at those, we can kind of see what needs need to be met, what facilities might not be represented in our 1997 code. It's a little bit outdated. We've grown a lot since 1997. So where we can add to the existing code, as well as looking at the development code, transportation, and comprehensive plan to make sure we're not contradicting anything that we've kind of already set as different goals. This is something staff's performed, as well as was encouraged for the Parks and Trails Advisory Board to complete. During our rezoning of parks and open space, our chair, Kathleen Walker, provided us with a good list of different development code opportunities that we should look at, which has been consolidated into staff's. We keep a separate binder just specifically to identify different areas of the code we should look at as potential amendments, so it's been added to that. Looking for different inspiration and trends, we've looked into different municipal parks master plans. There's been quite a few that have been updated in the past few years. Specifically, I've been really enjoying looking at Tualatin's, Happy Valley, Lake Oswego, and Hillsborough. Specifically Hillsborough because they have a separate trails master plan, which I think would be potentially good for us to look into doing. On top of kind of looking at those different kind of codes and whatnot, we've spoken with different attorneys regarding our parks system development charges, because as we were looking at potentially doing different improvements, we realized there were some issues with our methodology. So we really want them all to act cohesively together, so that's why we're kind of speaking with an attorney to make sure whenever we're going through all these efforts, we get that really squared away. So whenever everything's adopted, we can just kind of hit the ground running and get some really cool projects moving along. Back in 2013, the Parks and Trails Advisory Board created and distributed the 2013 Park Survey. It consisted of 10 different questions and was completed by 583 participants. The results helped to identify demographics, priorities, and wants of the participants, as well as it was pretty cool because it was distributed just to Sandy residents, so it kind of gives us a little bit of a geo reference as to where the participants really are acting. So it's really a controlled survey, which was really great for us to capture. When I came on board, 2018, I participated in the 2018 Longest Day Festival, Parkway Festival, that is. I created and hosted a participation event as well as a more consolidated survey for adults, which consisted of 4 of the questions from the 2013. My goal was really to kind of see some of the priorities that people are identifying, as well as use that consolidated survey to kind of reinforce those 2013 goals. Those results can all be found, the 2013 as well as a comparison of the 2013-2018 within this whole packet that you were given, as well as PDFs of the actual activity boards that I presented. So what I did was I created one board that had, using our 1997 definition of parks, all the different classifications, because I wanted to see adults and what they were kind of wanting to see as facilities, whether it be, pocket parks, trails, focusing on community parks, just to kind of get a better idea of that. And then the kids board had more colorful photos, and Senator just said, what do you want to see? And kind of had different categories. So adults got 4 dots, kids got 1 dot, just for attention spans, nothing to take away from anyone else. They were also lured with some icy pops and then some games as well. So we really tried to get the adults to focus on the survey, their 4 dots, as well as kind of gain a little bit of what our kids are initially seeing as park facilities and what they want to see. So we had 44 adults participate, as well as 107 kids within those couple hours, which was pretty great. I see planning kind of as a social science, so kind of getting to capture those people walking through the park who were coming there specifically for an event, I thought was really great. I think that mixed in with the structure of the 2013 one kind of shows some really great results. So regarding some of the needs assessments that have been created, I myself have gone out to all of our individual parks just to kind of take notes on what I've seen, how I experienced it, where I thought could be improved. The Parks Advisory Board's been encouraged to do the same, and with the support of our city manager, we've also asked them to kind of go out to the parks and do a little bit of a facilities condition inventory. That way they can kind of get out, see the current state of them, identify any immediate needs or concerns, as well as this will get them out there so whenever we ask for their recommendations for capital improvements as well as goal recommendations, they'll just have a fresh pair of eyes out there. So kind of our ongoing efforts are pretty much mirroring those efforts, continuing to look at the codes, looking at state, local trends to make sure we're kind of in line with that. Our state does a really great job at putting specific goals on recreation. So looking at those to make sure whatever efforts we're doing are going to mirror those. And then I kind of just highlighted a couple of next steps that I'm looking to kind of participate in. So regarding the research, I really want to look at our park land definitions. We have those kind of, the mini park, community park XYZ. I want to make sure those are kind of in line with what we want to see, as well as, again, the state, local definitions for those as well. Public outreach, I would really like to complete one more type of public outreach event. I brought this to the board at the last one, and the suggestion of potentially doing another survey was given, as well as using the 2013 and 2018 results from those 2 participating events to host potentially like a charrette to get different ideas. Regarding needs assessments, I've told the board that our next meeting, I really want them to start their initial conversations on assessing some of the needs that we're seeing. That way between that meeting and hopefully the next meeting after that, we can get kind of some recommendations drawn out from our board specifically. And then staff will consolidate theirs as well. I'm hoping to take both of those to some sort of charrette, kind of like that was presented from one of our board members at the last meeting, to kind of say this is what staff's seeing, this is what our Parks Board is seeing, how about you guys react to it? That way we can bring those kind of 3 branches, the public, the board, staff's recommendations, all to you guys to kind of get some final direction. And then see if you guys want to have more meetings after that, with what we come up with between the board and us, and using that information from the participants to kind of create the final products. There would be 3 final products is what we're kind of envisioning right now. One being the Parks Master Plan, one being a CIP list, as well as one being new SDC methodology. While they each will be different separate documents, they're all going to kind of act together to help, guide us, tell us what we need to work on and improve on with the CIP list, and then how we can potentially fund those with the SDC. So that's kind of a little bit of a summary. I'm sure you guys are going to have some questions. I may have ran pretty quickly through it, but I've given you guys a lot of exhibits as well. So please fire away.
So we all also received an email from Kathleen Walker as well too, as it relates to this conversation. So, and you get to testify. All right.
What, do you want to come up and?
Yeah, do that.
Was that a today email or?
Just,
No, okay.
yes.
You guys
You don't
have
have
it on
enough
your
copies,
screen,
I
or-
can-
No.
No.
You have
Take a
to-
paper copy if you got one. I'm good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yep.
Kathleen Walker, 15920 Southeast Bluff Road. So I'm testifying tonight, not as the Parks Board Chair, because I haven't had a chance to kind of run this by everybody else. This is kind of just a, having kind of reviewed the staff report and all, I kind of want to just back up a little bit and explain what a Parks Master Plan is. The Parks Master Plan is intended to kind of be an overall overarching document. What happens then is you have the capital investment plan in there for specific projects, development of new parks and all, and you have the SDC methodology. But what happens once you have that, the Parks Master Plan kind of identifies future park locations and future conceptual trail corridors. And
Kathleen, can we pause for just for a second? I see people are reading.
Okay.
I just want to make sure they have time to read that and listen to what you're saying too. Thank you.
Good idea, thank you.
I saw a lot of heads down looking. I don't have one in front of me to read.
That's
so-
why I kind of put it over here so we
I
could.
saw.
I'll read
Oh,
the
okay.
latest comment, listen.
Yeah, and I only got the report on Friday, so I didn't look at my email this weekend.
When is the next Park Board's meeting?
December, I think?
Mm-hmm. Third Wednesday of every month, unless there's no agenda items submitted by board members.
It would be good if we had input from the Parks Board too.
Yeah, I think some of this reflects that, some of what, you heard tonight. Okay, so like I said, a Parks Master Plan is kind of the overreaching document that kind of lines out where the future parks are and where the conceptual trail corridors are. They're not exact spots, because that's not how you do it. You don't, when people come say, well, you've got a park right on my property, that it may be there, it may be in the general area. So that's the idea. And then what happens is, as we get grant money and the other funding to develop these parks, or the developers, we collect SDCs to develop them, then we do what's called a Parks Master Plan. I mean, a individual Parks Master Plan for that park. And we decide, and what we've done in the past is we've had Greenworks and Group McKenzie and some other great park planners companies come and work with us on those. They did Meinig Park, they did Bornstead Park, they did Sandy River Park. They've done, the other projects and stuff. And what they're good at is they're able to kind of come in and quickly put together some ideas and then get the public involved in deciding on this particular park, on Bornstead Park, we want a splash pad, we want a community garden and all that, or on this park over here, we want to have pickleball or basketball or whatever. And so the specific uses for particular parks, that's something that kind of gets much more defined once you have a Parks Master Plan that says we want to park here, here, and here. You don't at that upper level decide, well, we're having the pickleball over here and the basketball over here, because those parks may take 20 to 30 years to develop, and maybe we need pickleball right now. I never even played pickleball, but evidently that's a new and up-and-coming thing. But my point is that, like I said, the more specific uses and ideas from the public that you get are things like, I want, more soccer fields or whatever, that are pretty specific to that specific parks. So we've done quite a bit of public input, and at this point, what's concerning me here is that, we made a huge amount of progress, and we got the trails built, Tickle Creek and Sandy River, Jim Slagle Trail, but at this point, we haven't had any progress in, more than 2 years. And all this development is happening, and we have built out our 1997 master plan. And so now is the time was we need to start identifying these proposed park locations and the trail corridors so that we have those on the record as being, you know, before you go develop this, oh no, we have a planned park here. And we don't have that now. So we've got all this development without intentional proposed park locations in the future. So, you know, meanwhile, things are kind of developing and we're losing that opportunity. So y'all almost a year ago decided to hire, you know, spend about, I think, $35,000 to help pay James's salary. And I don't know how much, you know, has been spent on that, but I guess, and I've had long discussions with Nancy about this, is that at this point, we're of the opinion that we don't need more surveys or anything. That the 2013 survey was a statistically viable survey, and, you know, something close to 8 or 10% of the population, and the opportunity to get more community input is really when you give them something to look at. Here is a draft parks master plan with proposed parks in these locations, trail corridors here, you know, kind of the types of uses. When you give something people can concretely look at and give you feedback, that's really the next important step of the public input process. And then you take that, and of course take the input from all you, and that's when you come up with your final parks master plan. And then once you have that, that kind of honestly goes up on a shelf, but then you start prioritizing with your CIP list, you know, what's the first project? Let's go out and start getting grants. Let's start getting that built. But there's a lot more planning that takes place after the master plan to actually get things on the ground. At this point, I guess my recommendation was that we have a lot of SDCs, park SDCs, that we can use to fund a parks master plan contract. And the contractors that we've used in the past have been fabulous at getting that done efficiently, effectively, and professionally. We don't have the staff here in the city of Sandy, honestly. You know, I make the joke that, you know, basically everybody except the library department has some responsibility for parks in this town. You know, we've got Carol Cohen, we've got Sarah Richardson doing the dog parks, we've got James, we've got, you know, Mike's department doing the operations and maintenance. I mean, it is just really, I think we need to work on that in the future as to what kind of a organization we have. But at this point, I think we would be best served by hiring a contractor to complete the plan. The Parks Board, after we did the survey, we actually sat down and using the standardized definitions for neighborhood parks and community parks, and there's standardized National Recreation Parks Association methodology that, you know, within that all your home should be within about a quarter mile of a neighborhood park. And then there's, you know, other requirements for half a mile within a larger park. And based on those standard methodologies, we went ahead and started we have a map of the proposed park locations, and we have maps of the proposed trail corridors to give to a contractor to work on, to check that over and fine tune it, to present it to you all to say yes, no, or edit, change it. So we've got a lot of work done, and I really feel like we need to kind of get a contractor in here to get this done, because honestly, you know, and it's understandable. First of all, there's a transition, you know, learning curve that James has, you know, because he hasn't done parks planning before, but also it's just realistically, like all these efforts that we do, our staff is kind of overloaded and overworked on all the development that's going on, and he hasn't had the time to really put to a third of his time on parks planning. He's been busy with a lot of other stuff. So I feel like we would be best served by having this done by a contractor that James can work with to provide, you know, direction from you all and from the Parks Board, and, you know, help set up the workshops with the public and really kind of manage the project in that fashion rather than, you know, doing the work all himself, because there's just kind of, I think, a gaposis in what can get done in a short amount of time in a professional, you know, effective way. So that would be, you know, I've kind of put together a tentative, you know, assumption here that, you know, if we, you know, we can kind of have a workshop here to kind of look at what the Parks Board has done already, because some of you all are not familiar with the workshop results, with the survey results that both James and the other one did, and also these locations and things. We've done a lot of work with the Parks Board already. Also, the contractors can put together the SDC methodology. The city staff really need to be the ones to do the facility condition inventories to determine what, you know, what needs to be replaced, what doesn't. That's not something that a volunteer is really, you know, great at doing. You really need your, you know, one set of eyes on it, somebody who knows what needs to be done. Your staff needs to kind of really help figure out not only what needs to be replaced and fixed, but also how much is it costing us right now with the parks we have. You know, are we better off contracting out lawn mowing or doing it ourselves? How many more you know, if we're talking about more parks, how much, we need to know how much that's gonna cost from an operations and maintenance standpoint.
It sounds like we're kind of getting down into the weeds
Oh, we
here.
are.
We're supposed to be
Sorry.
looking at master planning, so.
Right, right. That's all kind of the data that we need everybody kind of on deck to help with. But I'm just saying, my recommendation would be to, like I said, consider a contractor to kind of help us pull this together in the next 6 to 9 months, because we really need it with all the development going on. Thanks for your
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Mayor, can I offer some additional information at this
Certainly.
moment? So there are a couple of things that I'd like to bring to your attention. So I agree with Kathleen, there's been a lot of outreach done, but our staff's concern was that the outreach in 2013, by the time we started looking at a Parks Master Plan on our end, was 5 years old. So we wanted to refresh that and update that and make sure that we're getting some of the newer residents as well. The S2C methodology is already being handled by an expert outside that David Duthman recommended to us, and that Parks methodology is just about complete, and I think we're fine there. There is a consultant that Tanya went to a training, I don't remember what the training was. She went to a training and spoke with a consultant that we would recommend that you hire to come in. There's a lot of changes in the way we're thinking about parks now as we move forward. And some of the workshop issues I think that need to be addressed by council are what do you want to do as far as continuing with pocket parks and things of that nature. And there's a lot of practicality to the question that I'm asking, in the sense that we cannot afford to maintain all of these small bare pieces of land. And there's new thought process out there about having fewer small parks and having larger parks. So there's this lady, her name is Jamie, and I can't pronounce her last name, Savich, I think it is. She's with 100%.net, and she came out and did this speaking at this, what is it, a Parks and Trails? Thank you. And Tanya came back pretty jazzed after we discussed it for a while. I was pretty jazzed too, because it's a whole new way of thinking about what your community needs and how you maintain it, because there's a bunch of cities in the same exact position we're in, where they have these parks, but they don't have the funds and the staff to maintain them or to build new infrastructure on them. So she's coming up with ways and talking about ways that you can look at what you have and really get the most out of it, and then how you plan to move forward in the future. And I think a workshop is a great idea, and I'd love to have her come in and guide you through that, maybe have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission as well, if that's appropriate. But I think that's a definite direction to go. I think that James has done a phenomenal job. He's hit the ground running. He, as you can see by his update, he has done a lot of research, and where we've lacked before is a lot of deconflicting with all of the other master plans. And I think that the planning department has 100% shown that they can handle master planning at a great level. You know, when you look at things like the UGB expansion that they did and all the master planning that they're doing on other things, I think that this is the appropriate place for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to add just one other thing, since I oversee kind of this kind of on a high level. I don't really go to the meetings, and James really does do most of the work. But one thing I think, as Mr. Hamlin pointed out with the item that was brought to the URA tonight, is I don't think rushing to a solution in the next 6 months is that vital. The Parks Master Plan we have is from 1997. Before we took this over in February of 2018, Kathleen had put some time into doing the one public outreach and starting the master plan, but I don't think over the last 20 years before our department took it on, it was in community services, there wasn't a ton of work being done to get us to having a Parks Master Plan ready to be reviewed right now. So I would hate to say, you know, James has not done a ton of work in the last 10 months. What I would like to see is kind of pump the brakes, go with Kim's suggestion. And right now, we're just collecting SDCs. So all that amount is just going to get bigger so that in a year or two, we're going to actually be able to do a big park development. We have money in there, but it's not enough money to do a significant change in the city.
And do we have parks that aren't developed at all right
Yes.
now? And we have parks that are in the first phases of some of our
So Boar's
development?
halfway done.
Mhm.
Deer Point's never been touched, really.
Right.
Champion Village, behind the cinema's never been touched. So that's some of the priorities I think that James is laying out is those parks. I know Deer Point, the first phase, I think, was like done in 2003. So the residents there, some of them have been waiting the better part of a decade and a half, rushing to get this done in another 6 months over really taking and going through the due diligence process and getting exact plan that we want adopted over another year to year and a half is not going to be that big of an impact on those residents. They've already been waiting for so long as it is, and there hasn't been a park developed there.
Well,
and I know a big portion of that is because
Yeah.
we're waiting for the other half.
The other half had to be developed, and the other one didn't have any houses on it.
But I think we need to really look at it from a bigger perspective or a bigger picture now, saying we don't know when or if that's going to happen, so we should probably develop something there in the interim.
And one of the things about creating a parks master plan is you got to get it in before all the houses come, right? Get to know where you want those things to happen,
Right.
and the trails as well, because it's hard to put them in after the houses are already there. So I agree with you. The parks cost us a fortune in those type of to maintain and those type of things, and maybe a different layout in that. And I think that's what the Parks Board had been doing. I know we used to bring out the sheets across the table almost every meeting and discuss that, and your wife was part of that when she was on it as well, and developing that. So it is 5 years later. I don't know how much we spent on the survey that we did when we mailed it out here in 2013 and got responses back to all the citizens there, and I don't know what the cost of that was, but that would be another that cost, and maybe 5 years has been a longer time, but I don't think this should wait 2 years from now. I think we should be getting this done because of the developments happening, because once we're developed out, we want to be able to guide the way our city looks and where things are laid out versus having developers coming in saying we want to have it here or there because it works out most financially for them.
So right now, just to kind of get an understanding of this, right now we don't have a parks master plan, but we're collecting fees. So when a developer
we have a
comes
parks
in-
master plan.
From
It's just
1997.
dated.
Okay, so, and we're due for a new one.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're operating under an old one that has a couple parks that have been developed and a couple that are not all fully
That was on a
developed.
different parks, that was on a master plan that was specific for those three parks.
So properties that haven't even been, I mean, from 1997, that people probably didn't even think like there's gonna be a neighborhood here. Do we have neighborhoods like that now that are being built?
We developed 14 parks as part of the 1997.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess the other question is too, on the timing piece of it, we're the fifth fastest growing city in the state.
Depends on which
Right.
article you read.
Which article you read. Well, we're growing pretty dang fast. I think it's something where to delay may not benefit us as much, so.
Yeah, I was a big proponent of the Scott Lazenby methodology when he was here, though, is that if we have capable staff to do it, don't spend $100,000 to $200,000 on a consultant. That's why we did the UGB expansion in-house, because Scott kind of forced our hand and said, staff can do this. And that's why we did the parking survey that we did for our downtown. That's why we're doing the Pleasant Street Master Plan. Because I agree with Dr. Lazenby on that, is that I think we have more than capable enough staff to do a lot of this in-house.
And I agree with the timing as far as we don't want to, tarry too long, but we also want to do it right and thoughtfully. And I think that we could benefit from having some other folks come in and talk to us about, because again, we are experiencing exactly what a lot of other cities are as far as trying to get a good handle on how we want to do our parks as we move forward.
Well, I think I'm in favor of having a workshop with the consultant and see what kind of timeline can be had with proper planning.
Could we do a joint workshop with the Parks Board and the consultant and council?
Yep.
You want planning as well, or planning commission as well?
Yeah, planning.
Whoever be involved.
Yeah.
I would say our 97 Parks Master Plan and the conclusion that the Parks Board came to is exactly what Kim said, is that even the 97 Parks Master Plan said, don't do pocket parks. And yet, when developers are only doing a small part and they're only owe us, a half an acre, you end up with these pocket parks. So it's just what Kim said, but that wasn't.
Well, if I'm not mistaken too, we're not taking land in lieu of fee anymore either, so we shouldn't have that small pocket parks.
Sometimes
is
we
that
are.
correct?
Well, I think we are.
Are we still doing it?
In some.
I thought we'd stopped doing that.
Not much, though.
No.
We haven't done it
Not
as
as of
much
late.
because, again, our target is to go ahead and get bigger pieces,
Mhm.
not all this.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, where I'm at in this one is that this is a pretty complex issue, and I think it's got a lot more that we haven't even discussed yet, and I think that the workshop is crucial, make sure we got the right people in it. But I'm also concerned that Sandy has done all these projects, and we'll say with parks for the moment, on the slim. And it seems like we kind of push things together, we force things as fast as we can and as cheap as we can. To some degree, very well done, but also I'm concerned about some of the quality that may be not thinking about in terms of we should look at maybe a little more expensive, maybe a little bit more quality, maybe a little bit more appropriate to the style of people that we're building our parks for. And I think that a workshop would give us a chance to discuss those kind of issues. And there's an awful lot of stuff here that I think we're not really covering very well because of the time constraints. And if we can put together that workshop, I think that's the right thing to do.
You might even want a longer, consider a day. And really, if we're gonna bring
Like a Saturday,
Yeah.
instead of just
that
an hour
would be
or
our
two.
recommendation is, she's gonna charge us for the day anyway, so we
Yeah,
might as
right.
well
Put it
get
together, yeah.
as much out of her as we can.
Right.
I think that sounds appropriate.
Yep.
It would be good to hear some innovative ideas instead
Yeah.
of just
Right.
doing everything the same old way.
Yeah,
Yep. Look at
my
some new
thoughts,
stuff, right.
yep.
Okay, we got a plan.
Okay,
Okay,
Look forward to that.
I'll make sure Jordan handles that for you.
all right.
Volunteering for a whole day workshop.
Yeah.
Next up, we have amendments to Title 13 of the Municipal Code.
Thank you.
Wishing to avoid more detailed discussion of pipes.
You and your pipes.
What we propose is to implement some of these changes with the inspection responsibilities. It was necessary to make some changes to Title 13. And this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. You can see most of the date references in Title 13 are from 1973. So when I started on this, I said, well, I just, it was like, it just kept flowing out of me to try and correct some of these things. So I read through this pretty closely and tried to eliminate a lot of the archaic references and eliminate a lot of the, there's a requirement in there that someone from the city must visit every site for which an application for water service has been made. We don't do that. References, you can't use water for motor power or steam whistles or boilers. So we're just trying to. So a lot of the references are just to eliminate some of this archaic language and kind of get things up to date. There's reference to building permits. We added references to plumbing permits. There's references to connection fees. We added reference to systems development charges. They didn't even exist when these were written. So we're just trying to update this. I don't think there's any need to get too far off in the weeds on all the details in here. These are what we're proposing. We can also make this available to the public in the unusual circumstance that anybody would care to comment on this. But we can put this on the website, or so we could solicit some public comment on this as well.
Looks like a great article, Brittany, right?
People are going to buy those papers quickly.
Just do the whole thing in there.
Special holiday edition.
Yeah. The colored page, red
So
line.
I
So
wonder if
if-
that'd be helpful though for public
Yeah,
comment,
we
just
can put it
given
out
our
there.
most
Yeah.
recent code in the
Yeah.
public comment session we had.
Put it out there, and if, we don't have to come back on the 17th, we can do this after the first year, whenever. And if if you have any questions about this, just email me and say, I had a question about this, or why are you doing that? Feel free to do that. There's no big hurry to do this.
Okay.
It's, and it is a lot of changes, but I don't think anything substantial is being changed. It's just kind of a general
Cleanup.
cleanup. Yeah.
House cleaning.
I had one.
More house cleaning.
I had one, I don't catch many, but 13.04, 150, the use of fire hydrants. You literally spell out, I did it back then and you did it here, Sandy Rural Fire District. If we have an emergency and we have people from Estacade or Clackamas or Hoodland coming in, I know we let them use the, but
Right.
should we just reword that saying not Sandy, just as in fire,
Yeah, we can do that. We could just say emergency or other uses.
just as,
Yeah.
emergency uses of that aspect of it.
For fire protection purposes. Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
that. Okay, that's good. There you go, first comment.
Like, I don't get many, but I go,
And that would shorten up some of those red
There you go.
letters there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I sure appreciate that, Mike. Last time I had one of these just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a lot of work and probably more than I should have. But this gives me a chance to look at it. Did not have the time to look at this one in depth, so it looks like there's a lot of changes. Thanks for looking at the cleanup on that, though.
Okay.
So we're thinking a month, 2 months down the road,
No big hurry.
January, February or something, or what are we thinking?
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
why don't we post it for all of December?
You give it a month.
And
Yeah.
come back maybe the second meeting in January?
Okay,
Does that work?
for me?
I'll
Works
just
for
put
me.
that on Jordan's list.
So Mike, does the city require backflow devices?
we do, and that's in one of the sections that's not being
I
updated.
missed that.
That's in
Yeah, it's
section
not in there.
13.06, which isn't in here. We're not making any changes to that. That's one of the
We
more
should change the
modern.
frequency, I'm just saying.
Maybe we should vote on that, though. I think it might be.
Seriously, the once a year.
I understand it's a state thing, though.
No, I think it's different. So ours was every 2 years done in Eugene when we lived down there.
Oh, is that right?
Do we do it? We do it every year.
Yeah, the
here.
state requires that they be tested annually, I believe.
Yeah, I've been told 2 or 3
It's
times.
changed.
It has to be done
Yep.
every year.
your water rates, your methodology, it states in here that it was done May of 1991.
It's true.
We didn't change it recently? I thought we did. when we
Well,
did the
for
whole.
systems development charges, but not the water rate methodology,
Oh, okay.
you know.
Because I know we had, well, anyway.
We've adjusted the rates since then, but the actual methodology,
On how to
you know,
do it.
how we assign those costs to different customer classes has not been, and it really doesn't need to
Okay.
be, you know, it's.
I just
it's,
thought we had done it here just recently, that's what. we-
For systems development charges, but not for,
When we did the
utility.
intertie with Portland.
Yeah, that was just rates.
That was just rates.
To cover the cost of the
Okay.
intertie.
But the methodology hasn't
No.
changed.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we just calculated the same costs and then calculated out how much each ratepayer would pay per gallon or unit, whatever. Okay.
Okay.
All right, that brings us to the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as it is written.
Second.
Motion by Carl, second by John, that we approve the consent agenda as written. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City managers report.
I do have a few things, Mayor. I sent this to you ahead of time. It was the email from Jim Bernard with Clackamas County asking for council's support of the vehicle registration fee. And I wanted to know if you would like to send some sort of a response. I can do that for you. And if so, what that response should be.
You know what the responses have been or support from other cities around the county?
I do not.
I know in the C4, it was agreed to by majority, that would be something they would do.
Yeah.
Well, as I recall, we sent in approval on our behalf of what we agreed to was a $25 increase. And since they did not see things that way, I personally don't think we should support it. I mean, they have the right to do it whether we support it or not,
Right.
but
Yeah, they're looking for a overwhelming support so that they can get a lot of votes for, or next time they get voted for, not because this one's gonna go to the vote.
Right.
But they're
I mean,
looking
that's-
for
I think this is
protection for
on
next
them.
time.
They need to take responsibility for it. That's if they want to make it so.
What's the consequence if we don't support? Because I'm just saying through, like, when we put marijuana on the ballot, and then we also put the 3% tax on the ballot, just in case it did go through, that we'd be able to collect a tax. So is this something similar where if we don't support it, then we're not able to access the fees?
No, they can't
No,
by
it's a
law
county
We
withhold
will
it.
get the fees no matter what, and we'll
Yeah.
get a substantial amount of fees as our portion of it. And we did recommend that the split would be the same as the state required.
60-40.
60-40, and we would get our percentage. I think this is in that $33 to $45 range is what they're talking about. I don't think they made a decision just yet what that will be, but it's definitely more than what we were.
Didn't that say $30?
It's $30 a year
Yes.
per
30,
per
okay.
vehicle
Yes, that's what he said.
registration.
Oh, I thought it was 40.
I thought it was
30 is what the most recent email from Mr. Bernard was on November 28th.
Oh.
was
I know I just renewed
$30.
2 of my vehicle registrations, and the cost has gone up on both of those already, whether it was the state or
It's the
whatever. So now it is going to be going up again, and it's $30 per year.
$30 per year per vehicle, yeah.
Right, so it's $60 additional for your registration. It was it was $86. I can't remember what it was, 112 when I just renewed.
That was 116 because I had mine on the
116,
calendar.
okay. So now we're gonna throw another 60 on top of that. That's taxing people significantly. And while I understand the need for the transportation road repairs, that's a significant hit to a lot of people.
On the other hand, this is gonna go through.
Oh, it'll go through whether we support it or not. And
John's point, what is the consequences of us being out of the loop or not gonna be supporting when maybe the bulk of the other?
Well, as you pointed out yourself, we will get money if they
Right.
institute it, so I don't see where there's any consequences.
So let's support it for $25. Let's say our letter is our position we were at before. I don't want to see any increase in it,
Yeah,
so.
I don't either.
Yeah.
So we could just not support it and just say. well,
We can just say
not gonna
nothing.
send you.
Just
Yeah.
be,
Not gonna
just
send
be
you something.
silent on the matter.
I think
I think
that's the
so.
most
That's right.
appropriate thing.
Okay,
Okay.
There we go.
all right, and then I sent also to you the natural hazard mitigation plan, and I think it was a mere, I don't know, seemed like 500 pages or so. The next step, it was mostly informational for you for review. If you have any concerns or questions, we can answer them. The next step is, really it goes to the Oregon Emergency Management folks. They review it, and then they make any suggestions or changes, and then it goes off to FEMA. And then when FEMA's done with it and everybody has what they want in it, it comes back to you for promulgation if you agree with it. So I just wanted you to get it in your hands now so you'd have plenty of time to review it. If there's aren't any changes other than what I've given you now, we'll make sure you get them. But it's just a mandatory every 5-year housekeeping issue with that plan. We did add a couple of sections to it, some goals. One is increasing the viability of this structure and the hut next door, or for the
Generators?
the generator, not the generator, but the sandy net.
They did.
Oh, that one,
But
yeah.
increasing the viability of this building for earthquake, and then also for our community center, either present or future. So for viability of that in an earthquake. So those are 2 goals that we've added.
Yeah, and we've had a significant earthquake in Alaska, as I'm sure everybody knows, which is on the
Right.
fault line we presently kind of reside on.
Right.
Or very close to.
Right, I'm moving to Idaho. I'm just saying.
I was told that Idaho has
Ocean
quite
frontage.
a lot of earthquakes. So.
Yeah, so those, I think, are the only 2 things I have tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Carl, committee reports?
Real quick on C4, and it's mostly what's coming up on this Thursday night. They're going to be talking and discussing, I don't believe they'll be voting on it just yet, but they're talking about, and I'm looking for some response back, and I can give you the long letter if you want, that what their priorities are will be for legislative direction to their legislators for the upcoming priorities. And one would be the widening of 205, seismic improvements included, and all that would be including the extra lanes for the possibility of tolling. That would be one of the priorities. The second priority would be, this would affect us more than anything else, would be for Clackamas County, they'd be looking at a futures study for what transportation needs are for the entire county. And that would be asking legislature to fund that and be able to give us some sort of chance to look at not just a countywide, but includes all the cities and even the outside ring around the outside of the county to be able to study what our future needs would be for maybe light rail, bus, transit, whatever else that might come up with that. So that'd be number 2 priority, going to the legislature to talk to them about funding. And the third one would be the Clackamas County Courthouse for, I think it's $300 million.
Keeps going up.
Man, that puppy, it looks like it's expensive. So I understand it's an old one. I don't even know how old, but before I was born even, so we're very old. And it was in desperate need of being funded. So those are the 3 priorities. And if you want, I can send you, or give you a copy of what the future study would be like, and you can check that out. But that's what's going to happen at C4 on Thursday night. No decision, just lots of discussion. And I'm open to whatever you want me to communicate from here.
Well, if it's up to me, I'd tell them no tolling on roads we already paid for.
I think we're headed for tolling on additional lanes, not the existing lanes. And for me, that makes a lot of sense. Is why would I have to pay for a lane that I already can use? So if you're going to make me toll, give me a new lane to run on. And I think that's where they're headed for.
I might be able to get behind that, but
And I've heard anything from a few cents, like 75 to $1 to $5 and $6, depending on traffic conditions, time of the day, all that sort of thing.
You know, Seattle does that tolling.
They do?
You'll go through short distances, and they'll tell you this section 75 cents, and some is 50 cents. And then through particularly congested areas, you can zip on through at 60, and it was $1.50, and it might be 4-mile section, and then it'll drop back down. So by the end of a difficult commute, you may have spent $2.50 to go from just north of Kirkland to just outside Bellingham.
My sister-in-law I was with a month ago was in Seattle, and she had a $5 day.
is this part of your report?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
I'm also on the C4 committee as an alternate to Carl. So Andy and I will be going Thursday night, but I have nothing else to report.
Okay.
Nothing to report.
Jeremy?
Parks didn't meet.
Okay. How about council report then?
I don't have anything.
Okay, Scott?
You want to talk about it Friday night?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Okay, I'll leave it to you.
Okay.
Nothing.
2 quick things. One is I went to a training last week and found out there's a lot of stuff that was things that I haven't been doing. One of which is as a city council elected, if I make any notes, which I have been having to doing this last year, I have to make sure that those are available to the recorder. So
Yes.
if there is any notes going on,
That's why I encourage you not to use your phone, because that is also public record.
exactly. I was told that you can delete voicemails, so they aren't public messages, but text messages, yes, you have to. So
Although
those-
everything's preserved in the cloud, so it's still there.
These are all public meetings, so you
Yes.
can't have anything that's private. So
Exactly.
I have been working on that, and
I
I
have
told the
a
recorder
file
already.
cabinet full of notes and
Okay.
that kind of stuff, so if it's ever needed.
That's right. And there were a couple other items that were on that training that I won't talk about today that I think is do good for another workshop. The last thing is we talked about backflow devices. They were due last month, so if you haven't done one and you have them, you should do that.
Okay.
And I protestedly done it. I've got it turned in, so I'm not going to get fined.
So did you call Martin?
I did.
Okay.
And I'm done.
Okay. I just want to remind everyone, the Christmas tree lighting, Friday, 6 to 8. We will light it up at 7. They're collecting food for, I believe it's Kiwanis Food Drive. And I'm sure Santa will be there. He always is. We did just have breakfast with Santa Saturday morning. It was reasonably well attended, but apparently he's getting in a lot of Santa competition for Saturday. So I do believe attendance was down a little bit, but it was was it up? It must have been a little slower but steadier because I never had any big lines, so I just seemed like it was slower.
More efficient.
Oh, yes, yes. All except for those photo printers. That is something we really need to work on in the budget, and while the budget committee and the council doesn't get into that kind of detail, that...
Well, did you ask Santa for him for Christmas?
Why weren't you there to suggest that?
Andy, do you have the info on the, sorry to interrupt your report, do you have the info on the trolley for Friday night?
So the trolley will run a quick route that's the normal shopper shuttle route to pick people up.
Will you be going to the light shows too?
And then we will run basically 30-minute runs through the lights. We'll stop at 7 so that everybody's paying attention to the tree lighting. And then we'll run again. We have to try really hard to stop on time this year because we have people to take home. And last year we wanted to make sure everybody got on and got around, so we went about an hour over. So this year we'll be at the end of the line saying, this is it.
Okay.
We can't go any longer.
And one quick thank you to the Knapp family for providing us with another tree this year.
Yes.
Every year since we've been doing this, they've donated trees, and can't thank them enough for that. All right, we will adjourn for 5 minutes and reconvene for an exec session.